All right, we're live.
Okay, so for those who've missed, I just asked Superhumandance what he specifically disagreed with in the...
We just started the live stream. So, I mean, hi, everybody. This is Avi. Basically, I made a video a while ago about, what was that video called? What was the, something along the lines of like, you were debating something with ask yourself. Oh, it was positive and negative rights. That was my initial interaction with them. Just seeing that, you know, they didn't really have it all together with the whole positive rights versus negative rights thing, which, you know, is ultimately positive ethics versus negative ethics, which, you know, this was just my first interaction with you guys. I mean, Avi was saying something along the lines of he had a, if you clicked your shoes together and you put some water on those shoes, and you could save 1 million children, obviously you'd have to bite. He thinks you'd have to bite the bullet on that to save all those children. But if you were to come at this from a negative utilitarian perspective, you would see that, you know, you would have to answer first the question like, what would these children specifically do, right? So like what would we know that there wouldn't be a future baby Hitler or a future, you know, mass amount of animal holocausters or, you know, et cetera and so forth. So, you know, you have to ask these types of questions, specifics. It's about specifics. It's about nitpicking. Philosophy is about nitpicking. And that's all I asked in the chat with Mr. Ask Yourself over there. But I got banned from the thing just for asking that simple question. So,
are the invites out?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just me and you.
Oh, okay. So I just want to be clear. So what I'm here for, if we can talk about that as a secondary part of the discussion, what I'm here for right now is you are making a response video to the video we did on realism. And I want you to tell me what you specifically you've disagreed with.
Okay, yeah. So what I disagree with there is the initial, I only was like 2 minutes into it or 3 minutes into it.
We can go through the whole video if you'd like, because that's really what I'm here for. We made a video on realism, and
that's gonna take a really long time. You gotta, I mean, hold on.
Well, it's a very important topic, right? So
yeah,
I think it'll be good for us to explore.
First off, I don't believe in moral realism at all. I don't think it has any foundation to it. I've made videos against it in the past on this channel, like all the way going back like probably 8 months ago is the first video that I made against moral realism. I've actually had a Discord with a YouTuber named Antinatalist on this subject already. That's well, you know, documented on my channel and everything. So you know, I'm not a moral realist. I'm not a moral objectivist. I'm not a you know, I understand what those things are, and this is one of the major problems with ultimately, you know, you're friends with Ask Yourself. Ask Yourself's argumentation is that he uses morals when those, if you actually look up what those mean, we'll just get up a definition of them really quick. He uses them interchangeably with the word ethics, right? And the only things that he uses to defend name the traits is ethics. He doesn't use morals, right? He doesn't use individual.
Can you define out the difference for me?
Yeah, sure. Hold on. So, moral versus ethical. So, all right, here we go. So, I've made videos about this in the past, but yeah, I mean, we'll discuss this right now. So this is what, can I show my screen here somewhere on this? Whatever, we'll just flip this around and show you guys, because I can see what you guys can see. So, okay, so ethics, what are they? This is a law website, ethics versus morals, diffin.com. You guys can go check it out if you want to. So ethics are rules of conduct recognized in respect to a particular class of human actions or a particular group or culture. So in this case, the group or culture would be vegans. Vegans are a group, a culture of people that are ultimately expressing their ethics and influencing other people's ethics with their ethics, right? So, and then morals, however, so again, just so you guys can see here, this comes from external features, so social systems, ethics do, which is ultimately the only way that we learn anything about any of this stuff, from social systems, and ultimately other types of systems, not just social, but systems as well. We don't learn them from our individual, right? Like you can't have thoughts about information that you don't have, and that's what morals are defined as. So they're defined as principles or habits with respect to right or wrong conduct, while morals also prescribe do's and don'ts. Morality is ultimately a personal compass of right and wrong. So it's a internal feature, personal choice, personal compass, which is ultimately not a basis to build anything on, as is established by personal choice isn't an argument.
So I'm just going to jump in here. Just going to jump in here. So for the purpose of definitions and philosophy, we're going to either use the IEP, the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, or the Stanford.
Why?
Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, because those are the accepted definitions that are used in philosophy. And so I would request that we use proper notation when discussing philosophy. Well, I mean,
just as long as we're not using ethics and morals interchangeably, and we understand that, individual morals are different than ethics, and ethics ultimately influence.
So if we're going to define ethics and morality, we're going to use either the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, or we're going to use the IEP.
Sure. Well, you read me both of either one of them. That's fine.
Sure. We can use either one you would like. Are we invited out, and are we live now, by the way?
Yeah, we're live.
Okay, perfect. Sure. So I can read out the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy on Ethics. So ethics is the field or moral philosophy that involves systematizing, defining, and recommending concepts of right and wrong behavior. Okay?
Okay, so that's morals?
That's ethics.
Ethics. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And
well, this is different definitions already.
Yeah, so we're going to use the definition, which is what philosophers use. Which we're going to use the definitions on this IEP is a peer-reviewed philosophical source.
So I think we should go with that for sure.
The definition of morality.
No, how decisions are made on ethics in the real world. Ethics.
So I'll read it again. So the field of ethics or moral philosophy.
This is not. This isn't
systematizing, defining, and recommending concepts of right and wrong behavior. So it's a field. It's a field, and the field is concerned with systematizing, defining, and recommending concepts of right and wrong behavior.
Sure, yeah.
That's what ethics is.
Yeah, okay, that's great. I didn't hear that initial thing you said. Systems. It's perfect. If you had it on the screen, I'd be able to I'd be able to read it.
It's a field that involves systematizing.
Yeah, systematizing. Yeah, that's fine.
So, recommending.
You think that you can have thoughts about information that you don't have?
Do I think that I could have thoughts about information that I don't have?
Yes.
Well, I can answer you like a sophist by saying, yeah, I just thought about it. But no, I don't think I can have thoughts about information that I don't have. All I could do is think of the fact that I don't have it.
You have to have a system. There has to be a system in place to be able to understand that thing first. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, it's what's the basis for it? Essentially, that's the question.
Would be like if you answered no to that question that I just said, you'd have omnipotence. You'd be insane.
Yeah. So essentially, that's why we made a video on We made a video on why we are not moral realists.
Yeah, but I mean, so why would we even ask people about moral value? Is my question. Why wouldn't it be about ethical value? So if we look at Name the Trait. It's about.
So I just want to redirect because we made a video on why we don't consider ourselves moral realists, and why we don't consider ourselves realists with respect to metaphysics either, or realists with respect to mathematics. And I was wondering what in that video we disagree with.
Okay, so what we disagree with at the beginning, I only got 2 minutes into that. So what we disagree with in that video, which is I only got 2 minutes into when I was discussing it, was there's pragmatism isn't a piece of, like anyone that's using that in philosophy, which is, I'll just define pragmatic really quick for everybody that doesn't know, okay? So this is what I'm using when I say pragmatic.
We're going to use the IEP again, and we're going to use the pragmatic, we're going to go to the pragmatic theory of truth.
Okay, all right, that's fine. We can use that one as well. That's fine. We'll see if they all fall in line with everything here. Go ahead.
Because there's very different theory of truth is very important. So you can be, whether you're a realist or not on different things actually can depend on your theory of truth, right?
Yeah.
So there's the there's the correspondence theory of the truth. There's the coherence theory of truth. There's deflationists. There's pragmatists. So it's a huge topic in philosophy.
Yes. I just realized I don't have my good mic plugged in right now. Is my sound coming through okay?
I can hear you. It's not the best sound quality, but I can hear you.
Hold on one second. I'm going to hook up that good sound quality mic real quick. Try to swap it over. This was all really off the fly, off the cuff here. So I'd like to set up a time in the future maybe, but I mean, apparently you guys don't want to get corrected about this stuff. So, I can see why you wouldn't want to do that topic. I don't understand why. I mean, it's so simple, to have these discussions.
Well, anything who knows anyone about this, we need to be very, very clear. You need to be very clear on the definition.
I'm very clear. That's why no one has. Ask Yourself's never made a video debunking anything that I was saying, or debunked anything that I've ever said. And in fact, he's been so unclear that when I corrected him on these subjects, he's banned me from the rooms. If you watch any of my videos,
I'm gonna redirect the conversation off to the topic that we're discussing.
Dismantling what he's saying.
I asked you what you disagree with in our video. You said you disagree with the word pragmatic, so we're defining the pragmatic theory of truth. Pragmatic theory of truth holds. It's a theory of truth in philosophy. Pragmatic theory of truth holds roughly that a proposition is true if it is useful to believe. So it's true with respect to its usefulness, essentially.
Which is preposterous.
True if it's useful to believe. And utility, essentially that utility is the essential mark of truth. And that, so certain beliefs are undeniably useful, they would say, even though on other criteria they are judged to be objectively false. Okay, so it's important. So with respect to a correspondence theory of truth, you can say that certain useful things can be false, but with respect to the pragmatic theory of truth, they're true in respect to their usefulness.
Right.
And then there's other views of truth. There's the coherence view of truth, which is things are true with respect to its comportion with our own systems of belief or our axioms. So when you say things are true or false,
axioms, theoretical things are the best things to build arguments around.
Axioms are the foundation is what we unjustifiably assume or bootstrap or for some people think that they are instantaneously justified things that we just build themselves on, depending on your view of the axiom. So it's important that when someone says they're a pragmatic theorist of truth, what you have to get them down to is say, well, if something is not useful and it exists, do you think it's not true? And they would say, well, no, I'm saying it's true. A pragmatic theorist of truth may say, well, it's true with respect to its usefulness. Just like a correspondence theorist of truth will say, it's true with respect to its state. It is something that has a state of affairs in the world. A coherentist theory of truth would say, it is true with respect to that it coheres with my axioms. So I personally take the approach that just say what it is true with respect to which theory of truth. So I can say something is true with respect to a correspondence theory of truth. I can say something.
So we've gone into this you've defined this pretty well now. All right, so let's just do you think you've defined it well, or
so now what do you and give me a timestamp if you can. So what you specifically disagreed with the realist video that we were talking about?
No, it was only here. We'd have to go through that whole video. But
well, you shouldn't take you've only gone through a short amount of it. I mean, I want to know what you disagree with us on.
Yeah. So the primary thing at the beginning was that it wasn't even what you guys were saying at the beginning, but obviously later on there were some differences. There were some major problems in the logic. The major problems ultimately were pertaining to you guys just aren't defining this word that's in the title of this video. That's why I made it in the title of this video. This word has never been titled negative utilitarianism.
We weren't talking about negative utilitarianism in the video, if I recall correctly.
Talk about realism.
We were talking about moral realism.
It ultimately has a negative.
I'm going to redirect you to the topic at hand. which is you made a video discussion. You made a video in response to our moral realist video, and I want to know specifically what you disagree with in our video, because you made a response video and you were.
I wasn't done yet.
Okay, you were making a live stream, so let's talk about it. We can go do the live stream now. We can go through the video and we can.
Time. I've already know where you guys are wrong and why you're wrong.
Okay, so tell us what we're wrong in and why we're wrong in that video.
You're wrong, not just in that video. You're wrong in like dozens of other videos with dozens of other topics.
What are we wrong in that video?
So if you think that positive rights exist.
Okay, we never spoke about positive rights in that video. So can you tell us what we're wrong in that video?
You've been utterly, brutally false. So
okay, so we never mentioned anything about positive rights in the video. Can you tell us what we were wrong in that video?
Okay, well, it wasn't a video yet. It was a live stream.
Okay, so in your live stream, can you tell us what you thought we were wrong on in our video?
Yeah, pragmatism has nothing to do with, like, if you don't discuss any negative utilitarianism, when human beings are existing, ultimately, they're trying to reduce negative, okay? This is just very simple. They're trying to reduce the negative around them. There's no...
Do you understand this is a theory of truth and not a theory of morals? Do you understand, like, when someone's talking about they're a pragmatist or they have the pragmatic theory of... If they're talking that they have a pragmatic theory of truth or a pragmatic theory of morality, these can mean different things. So which one was he talking about? Which one would you disagree with?
Well, he's talking about pragmatic theory of truth, right?
Well, you tell me. You disagreed with it. So
he said.
Would you like to give me? How about this? Would you like to give me a timestamp of the part of the video you disagreed with?
No, I mean, there's no real reason to do that.
Well, I mean, you disagreed with it, so let's go.
Hello, you there?
Disagree with. Because I'll pull it up. I'll pull up the video right now.
Lagging really bad. Just settle down.
No, well, it's not lagging on my end, so you tell me exactly. I'll listen. I'll tell you what. I'll do you a favor. I'll turn up the volume. I'll listen in right now, and I'll tell you exactly what JHC said. Yeah. You didn't get that far in the video.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, I was just about to highlight what you guys were wrong about later on. I watched the whole thing, like maybe about. I watched specifically like probably 45 minutes into it or so.
Okay, but, so let's get down to where you disagree. I want to hear the context of the video where you disagree.
All right, dude, you gotta shut up. I gotta talk. All right, okay, be quiet or I'm gonna mute you. This is insane.
What?
Settle down. Okay, we gotta make an argument. This has to be a discourse. I have to talk. Right. So when human beings come into existence, ultimately, right, they always experience pain. Every single time.
This is you're going off topic now. The reason I'm talking to you is because I wanted to.
And I'm talking about negative utilitarianism.
Well, I'm here because
contrasts moral realism. It's a fact. Moral realism.
I'm here because
negative
you
utilitarianism.
made a video about you made a video about a moral realist, the realist video that we did, and I'm concerned about what you found that you disagreed with. Now you're trying to. We can talk about negative utilitarianism.
I've stated that multiple times. You guys aren't even talking about negative utilitarianism, and that's the only way to come at this topic. So let's just
well, the fact that's the point. That we weren't talking about negative utilitarianism. We were talking about
no, that's all you can talk about when you talk about this. Otherwise, you're false.
Normative
that has
ethical
the most
theory
evidence.
And metaethics.
Listen, negative utilitarianism is the only thing that has evidence to it. There is no moral realism.
Do you understand the difference between metaethics and normative theory?
Yes.
What is the difference?
Metaethics and normative theory. Normative theory is like consequentialism versus deontology. Okay. And I'm a consequentialist. I understand what consequentialism is. It's the only thing I've ever seen is that there's consequences to people's actions. There's never been any sort of logic behind any sort of duty or other types of bullshit in normative ethics that I've seen.
Okay. And what is metaethics?
Metaethics is like understanding, I don't know, asking questions about preposterous things like where did the universe come from, right? Like, but
that's not what metaethics is. I can explain metaethics to you if you'd like. That's not what metaethics is.
What's your definition of it?
Metaethics relates to the founding, and just to be fair,
I thought you said metaphysics. Sorry, just flagging. I know what metaethics is.
What's
it's a branch of ethics that seeks to understand the nature of ethical properties and statements, attitudes, and judgments. So ultimately, we can understand what these things are by evaluating the world around us. We can understand what they are more likely. We can make it a lot more likely.
So not exactly. So metaethics is the branch. It's a branch of analytical philosophy, and the purpose of metaethics is to explore the status, the foundations, and the scope of moral values, the properties, and words.
How is that not exactly what I just said?
Because it's the foundation. It's about where ethics are founded from. So it has to do whatever normative
exactly what I just said. It's exactly what I just said, and you're just not listening to what I just said, dude.
I'm listening exactly to what you said.
You are so far up your own ass.
The point, the key here,
okay? And get corrected really quick, okay? This is the correction is that there's a negative utility when you come into existence that you always feel pain.
Well, we were not. That's a normative. That would be a normative theory, and we were not.
And this comes from this meta-ethical theory that there's.
So meta-ethics, we were strictly speaking about meta-ethics. We were not speaking about normative theories. So is there something about meta-ethics that you disagree with us on?
Axioms, okay, and deciding what is true from axiomatic things, not pragmatic bullshit.
Okay, so do you? So
I've been clear on
pragmatism can be an axiom in and of itself. Are you aware of that?
No, it's not.
It absolutely can be. So you can say things are right in the sense of their utility as an axiom. You can structure that axiom up all you want. That can be an axiom in and of itself. All we were talking about now, whether you should have that axiom or not, would be a normative theory issue. The meta-ethical issue, meta-ethics itself, is the topic at hand. Now,
okay, it's not just whether it's an axiom; it's whether it can be tested as an axiom that's true, right? That's what we have
test an axiom that's true. How would you test an axiom that's true without comporting with your own axiom? So we have to be very clear about what do you mean by testing.
The way that you do that is by simply evaluating it farther, right? Take that axiom and try to build evidence around it. That's the only thing.
Try to build evidence with. So here's the issue. The problem with building evidence to test your axiom is that you end up in an infinite regress. So for example, let's say I have a mathematical system or a physics system, and I say, well, it works because I can do all these things. But what the problem with that is that all of these things are only being measured with respect to the acceptance of the axiom in the first place. So it boils down to either circular reasoning or an infinite regress. That's called Munchausen's trilemma. Have you heard of Munchausen's trilemma? It's either circular reasoning, infinite regress, or an axiom. It's the nature of how we prove things.
Yeah, and I just stated at the beginning, we can understand things more than we don't understand them. Did you not hear me say that?
How do you understand things more than you do not understand them? By what metric?
By evaluating the world around us and being able to, understand.
How do you know that you? And again, so this is the problem, right? So how do you know that you're evaluating the world around you?
Okay, because you can understand that, things add up, right? Like you can test math, you can test, but you don't understand all of math. You understand all of, there's huge chunks of math that ultimately we don't understand.
How do you understand that things add up?
Based on, understanding more of the processes behind it.
How do you understand the processes behind it?
By examining and understanding the nature of, the properties, whatever.
How do you understand and examine the nature of the properties?
By testing the axiom.
How do you test the axiom?
By you try to figure out what the things are that are around you. So do you want to get somewhere?
How do you figure those things out?
I mean, do you want to get somewhere? And
the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make.
Oh, you don't know where the start of the universe happened.
The point I'm trying to make.
That? You want to ask that question?
The point
you're going on this type of kooky ass shit that you're going on right now. Okay, we'd be asking that question. We'd be like, where did the universe start? Oh, let's all answer that question, right? Wait, we don't have the answer for that, but we do have a lot of evidence pointing to that it's not a goofy ass fucking Jewish God or something like that, right? So okay, so this is a stupid question.
You're missing the
Where's
point
the start of
I don't
logic?
think you're understanding
Where's
metaphysics.
The start of reason. where's the start of logic? Where's the start of reason? Where's the start of the universe? It's a preposterous question to ask. We are here now and experiencing the world around us. How do we want to do ethics better? Okay. How do we want to do ethics better? The way that we do ethics better is that we actually evaluate the world around us in an axiomatic way. All right. So do you want to get the fuck off of this high pedestal where you're like, ooh, where's the universe start? I'm so fucking smart because I'm asking, where does the universe start? Or where does the thought start? Or no one knows where that shit happens. Okay.
Okay.
You can understand up to a certain point where, what you're saying is more likely, just like you can understand that 3 + 3 being 6 is more likely than it not. Okay?
I don't think you're understanding what I'm trying to get at with.
No, I fully understand what you're trying to say.
Well, tell me. How about you tell me what I was trying to get at?
What you're doing right now is you're reducing it down to something that is so irrelevant because you don't have the answers for these things at all, okay? And I don't have the answers for these things at all. So why would that be the basis upon which to discuss what we should do here and now? It's preposterous.
Well, that's
this is the same type of religious
can I get a word in?
Shit.
Can I get a word in?
No, you've talked for like fucking 10 minutes now, defining a bunch of stupid shit and using fucking dumbass I'm so much better because I'm making it from a fucking random ass, position of where did God done it at the beginning of the universe or something. You're doing the exact same thing that people that say God done it at the beginning of the universe.
Well, that's not my claim.
It is. It's precisely the claim. It's precisely the claim. You don't want to discuss the actual topic at hand, which is negative utilitarianism and why it's true compared to moral fucking realism. And I'm correcting you assholes about this topic, and you're being fucking useless assholes right now. So shut the fuck up and listen to what I'm fucking saying, okay?
So the topic at hand was
not another fucking peep.
More realism.
Muted. All right. So listen.
So the topic at hand was realism.
You're muted.
Meta-ethics.
You're muted. Just settle down.
Okay.
So listen, I got to get this out there.
The point is that
utilitarianism.
Axioms has not.
Dude, he just keeps talking. This is incredible.
Meta-ethical.
He just doesn't stop talking.
Okay.
I mean,
that's the part of the issue because it's what you're trying to do is normative theory, right? So you're talking about normative theory. We were talking about meta-ethics and metaphysics.
Are you unmuted right now?
Okay. Yeah, I'm unmuted right now.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Go ahead. So we're talking. So if you want to build it, if you want to go back to the very fucking start of whatever.
That's what meta-ethics and metaphysics is.
Yeah, I know, and that's why
that's what our video. That's what the video was about. So what do you disagree with us in the realm of
metaphysics? It was about moral realism.
That's a metaphysical. That's a question of it relates to your theory of truth, metaethics, and metaphysics. So realism relates to moral realism relates to metaethics. So dude, that is you're taking this conversation into normative theory, and what the conversation was about in our video was not normative theory. It was actually metaethics. So that's the conversation. So what do you disagree with us on metaethics?
You're wasting my time.
I'm asking a question.
Okay. Why don't I agree with you on meta-ethics?
Yeah. Where do you not agree with me on meta-ethics?
Where do you can't ask questions like, where did the start of the universe come from without evidence leading up to that? So you can only understand the evidence leading up to that, right?
The question is not about the start of the universe. So the question is...
The question is about the start of ethics, which is ultimately the start of the universe. Which is exactly what I'm saying.
Ethics is not the start of the universe. So the question is, how do you know what in realism? The question is metaphysics.
Go back to the start of. Listen, you can regress all of history back to the start of the universe. Okay, so where did the first thought happen? Okay, we know that it happened about 541 million years ago here on planet Earth in the Cambrian explosion.
So that's not what the topic is. So the meta-ethics is not about where the universe started or where the first thought started. It's about how.
Yes, it is.
It's of your normative system.
No, listen, it's the branch of ethics that seeks to understand the nature of ethical properties. Okay, and ultimately
foundation. Keyword is foundation. You've skipped over. So I'm going to go to the IEP again.
Ethical thoughts. They come from ethical thoughts, dude. Keywords, whatever the fuck you want to.
I'm going to go to the IEP again.
Incessantly, dude. And you just want to talk incessantly. You don't want to get corrected. and just correct it. Just get corrected, okay? This is absurd.
Go to the IP again.
It's lagging. It's lagging.
Because
can't hear you. Go ahead. Say it again. What are you talking now? Metaethics is the start of ethics. Where does ethics start at? Where does the thought start?
The founding of ethics. It's the branch of analytic philosophy that explores the status, foundations, and the scope of moral values, property, and words. So the question is, what is the founding of our ethical systems? What is the founding of the normative systems? Then it's not about the normative systems.
Pain is bad. That's what it is.
What
pain
is
bad. Unnecessary pain.
Okay, so how do you know that pain is bad?
Because we've evaluated evolution, and we know that evolution is makes pain a fact. Pain is a fact of evolution.
So whatever is a fact of evolution is bad?
No. Pain is just bad because.
How do we know pain is bad?
Because unnecessary pain is unnecessary. Do you agree?
Okay,
with
how
that?
do we know unnecessary pain is bad?
Do you agree with the fact that unnecessary?
How do we know that unnecessary pain is bad?
Okay, because unnecessary pain. What do you mean? How do we know that unnecessary?
How do you know that unnecessary pain is bad? That's the meta-ethical question.
Yeah, I mean it's unnecessary. It's just it doesn't have to happen in the first place. So it's
there are a lot of things that are unnecessary. There are things that are me picking up this is an unnecessary act. Is it bad?
Hold on. Okay, so just chill out for a second. All right, so unnecessary pain is unnecessary when it doesn't have to happen, right? So
this didn't have to happen either right now. I didn't have to pick this up. So is it bad?
That's not pain. What are you talking about?
Something bad because it is unnecessary.
No, listen, coming into existence, right, is always a serious harm of
how do we know that is the case?
Dude, how am I going to talk if you just keep talking over me?
You're not the reason I'm doing this is because you're not.
He's lagging. Is he lagging for somebody else right now?
Answer the question, then it's a different story. So my question to you.
I'm trying to answer the question and you're just talking over me.
You are dodging the question is what's happening.
I'm not dodging any question.
You're playing dodgeball with me. So, or you may not understand the question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Pain is bad. You're asking me why pain is bad right now.
I'm asking you how you know pain is bad. What's the founding?
How do I know that pain is bad?
Yeah.
Because coming into existence is always a serious harm, and not coming into existence is simply not a serious harm. So think for a moment.
How do you know that serious harm is bad?
I'm about to explain that. Think for a moment, Avi, about the moon or Mars or anywhere where there's no sentient life. Okay, so on Mars, there's no sentient life right now. And there's no sentient life that's ever came into existence as far as we know, okay? Think about Mars, barren, there's nothing on it. Obviously, that means that there's also no negativity because there's no sentient beings there to experience the negativity.
How do you know coming into experience or experiencing harm is bad?
Well, I just explained it because you could think about Mars for a second, Avi. Are you thinking about Mars?
I'm thinking about Mars. Tell me how harm is bad.
Okay. Well, do you not think
I'm thinking about it. I got it. I'm thinking about it right now.
About Mars right now? So
I'm thinking about it.
So do you not think that death is bad?
How do you know that death is bad?
I'm not the one not answering questions here. You're not answering questions, sir.
I will answer your question. I will answer the question. The answer is I don't. So the answer is I actually don't know, and I bootstrap it as an assumed axiom. I don't claim to know. Well, if you think you can
bootstrap it as an assumed axiom, great.
That's an axiom. That's an axiom.
Yeah. It's a good axiom, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and my question to you is that the reason that nature of bootstrapping, the nature is the topic of metaethics, not normative theory. We can talk about what we bootstrap in our normative theories, but the topic at hand in the video that we were talking about had nothing to do with what we were bootstrapping. It was the nature of things existing or not existing. That's what moral realism is. That's what metaethics is. So you can talk about different ways things
you're discussing like just metaethics, but
yes, we were discussing metaethics in the video. It was not a normative theory discussion.
Okay, but you said the word.
Can you just explain to me the difference? Can you just explain?
But you said the words moral realism in the debate.
Can you explain to me the difference?
That's normative ethics.
Can you explain? No, it's not. Moral realism is not normative ethics.
Yeah, you're being silly as fuck.
Would you like to look up the definition of moral realism? It is not normative theory.
Yeah, it's
moral realism is meta ethics. It's not normative theory.
It's like altruism things. You know, I mean, you could have things that come from that,
it's not.
Ultimately,
okay, but that's not what it is.
Moral realism?
That's not what moral realism is. Not altruism. Moral realism deals with the nature of how morality exists, and if it exists objectively, it can be broken down into two different classifications: the robust moral realist and the minimal moral realist. The robust moral realist would reject non-cognitivism, error theory, as well as moral non-objectivism. The minimal moral theorist would only reject non-cognitivism and error theory. Do you understand what those mean?
Yes.
So what is non-cognitivism and error theory?
Well, I mean, I could what by your definitions? What do you want?
You told me you understood what those are. Can you tell me what those are?
Meta ethics to you that are, and you're like, no, it's this definition of the Stanford Encyclopedia of Doop-a-Doop because I want to avoid fucking understanding.
Yes, it's important we use when we're talking about words. It's important we use definition. Now, I'm not going to split hairs with you. If you would like, I can read the definitions to you.
Splitting hairs this whole fucking time.
Would you like me to read the definitions? I asked you if you know what those words mean. You said yes.
I do know.
Can you tell me what error theory and non-cognitivism is?
Yeah, error theory is like, you know, I've done videos on this in the past. Google error theory on my channel. But if you want to Google we'll do the Stanford Encyclopedia version for you, Mr. Autist. All right. Jeez, oh man, Stanford. Philosophy.
I mean, if you're going to say yes, you know what they are. I mean, it looks like you're looking it up. It's fine if you want. If we can go through the definition, I can define them for you. But it seems like you didn't know what it was. So why did you tell me?
No, I've made videos on this in the past, dickhead.
Well, if you made videos on the past, then you should just be able to answer my question, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, you always split hairs. I've given you theory topics about, you know, meta ethics and things, and you've been like splitting little hairs. Well,
you gave me the. Oh, look. So, can you answer my question? What is?
You expect me to just be able to recite the Stanford definition of fucking error theory?
Give me a definition.
Shut the fuck up, dude. You're silly.
What is non-cognitivism and error theory?
Silly. Settle down. It's moral anti-realism. Okay. That's what it ultimately is.
It is. No, it's not moral anti-realism. It's a subset of moral anti-realism. Okay?
Yeah. Okay. So it's a subset of moral anti-realism.
And what is specifically? I mean, because and the only reason I'm asking this is because you said you understood what it was when I asked you.
Yeah, I do understand what it is.
So what is error theory?
In the past.
What is error theory?
It is based on the Stanford definition that you want so badly, because I've already, you know, it's, you know, the argument from there's the argument from queerness.
Okay, that's not what error theory is. That's an argument that relates to error theory. So what is error theory?
Well, ultimately the arguments are what builds things, right? And that's what you want, right?
What is the definition of error theory?
Okay, all right. You want just the definition of error theory. Well, there's only arguments.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing, superhumandance. So if you were to ask me,
shut the fuck up.
If you were to ask me what the definition of error theory is, and I were to say yes, right now I can give you the definition of error theoy without looking it up.
I can give you a bunch of arguments for it.
So no, I'm not talking about arguments. I'm talking about.
Okay, what do you want? You want actual definitions of it.
The definition of error theory, yes.
I've already told you. Hold on, I've already.
When I say yes to the question, if you were talking about something I didn't know, I wouldn't say yes.
That says that it's basically like nihilism. That's what it is.
No, it's not. Error theory is not nihilism.
Nihilism. Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Can you tell me what error theory
is? Ethical nihilism.
Can you tell me what error theory is?
It's ethical nihilism.
Okay. What is the specific statement that error theory makes regarding to the truth value of moral statements?
What? Why would you expect me to know the specific thing?
That's the specific part of the definition. That's what defines error theory.
You're so fucking weird. Why would you expect me to know the exact definition of error theory on the Stanford Encyclopedia of fucking philosophy?
Well, the only reason I asked you is because I gave you an example and I asked you if you knew what that was.
I've explained to you exactly what it is. I've told you.
No, I still haven't gotten the definition.
That's exactly what it is. It's nihilism of. No. That's what the conclusions are ultimately of it. It's a conclusion of the arguments, is it not?
Nope.
It's not a conclusion of the arguments. It's just you can have thoughts about it.
It's a definition. It's a definition.
Thoughts about information that you don't have. It's not a conclusion of the arguments. No, we can't have the argument first. We have to know. We have to have the information without fucking, to be able to, I mean, we just have to have the thoughts about the information first. That's what, Mr. Avi thinks. You can just have the thoughts about the information first.
Definition. I can give. Would you like me to give you? I can give you the definition.
Yes, say what it is. I already know what it is, though. It's moral anti-realism. It's ethical nihilism.
It's a subset of moral anti-realism, and it is not equivalent to nihilism.
It is 100% equivalent to nihilism. Yes.
Okay. So what are the statements? The truth statements. What are the truth statements that a nihilist would say regarding the meta-ethical theory of? In response to their theory of truth, regarding their theory of truth, what would a nihilist say about the truth statements of moral statements?
You don't think
I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you, what would a nihilist say regarding the true value of moral statements, and what would an error theorist say regarding the true value of moral statements?
An error theorist would say that it's just all subjective and that we have no.
That's not what that's not the key that an error theorist would say. The error theorist might say that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be by the definition of error theory. So what would an error theorist say regarding the true statements?
You're Mr. Definitions over here, but not
We're not going to get the definitions on the table. We're not going to have a listen.
I mean, dude, are you like full-blown autist or something?
Listen, I am not going to be weaseled around by different definitions. We need to operate on the same definitions in order.
What are you talking about? We are operating on the same definition.
Okay, so what is the definition of error theory?
It's, if you want just a very simple terminology for it. I don't know if you'll be happy with this though, okay? But it's just moral skepticism, basically, okay?
No, that's not what it is. Moral error theory makes statements regarding the truth value of ethical statements. What does a moral error theorist say? What does an error theorist say regarding the truth value of moral statements?
I mean, I've told you this a bunch of times now. The truth value of moral statements, they say that it's subjective to everybody, which is ultimately
that's a moral non-objectivist. You're confusing an error theorist with a moral non-objectivist. So a moral non-objectivist.
What's your definition? Go ahead. Just tell me what your definition is.
Okay, so error theory. Notice I'm not going to look this up on Google. Error theory is that moral statements do have truth value.
Just know the fucking definition.
The truth value is false.
I'm about to give you all the answers to this shit through argumentations that have been made over this.
So error theory,
argumentations, as I've already done multiple times on this channel. You can't have moral fucking objectivism, but you can't have answers that are right and wrong to moral.
You understand the difference between moral non-objectivism and error theory?
Questions. They aren't moral. They have nothing to do with morals. They have to do with ethics. Ethics build other people's ethics. Unless you think you can have thoughts about information that you don't have. Ethics build other people's ethics, okay? So this topic that you're discussing here is totally fucking preposterous. What are the definitions of the Stanford Encyclopedia of Boopa-Doopa-Doop? I'm going to fucking dupe myself into thinking that I'm smarter than this guy because I fucking know what the definition of random fucking stupid ass shit is. Who gives a fuck, dumbass? I'm discussing
the reason it's important. Topics, the reason it's important is because you made a video. You made a video about
who's smarter. Who's smarter? I'm Mr. Dr. Avi. I want to know who's smarter, not what's right or wrong. I got to sell my fucking drugs to people, right? That's what you fucking do at your job, dickhead. Oh, you went to school to sell drugs to people. Yeah, and then you realized that when you came on here and you were like, oh shit, my life fucking sucks. I better start figuring out this fucking ethics thing. And so you did, and you figured it out a little bit with Ask Yourself, and now you want to discuss where did the start of the universe come from and all that other shit that you were saying earlier, okay? No, dude, just shut up, all right? Pain is bad because everyone here agrees that fucking, ultimately they don't want to die. Why would you want to die? Nobody wants to die. Even somebody that wants to commit suicide didn't want to die initially. Okay, pain is bad every single time when it doesn't have to happen, right? So if you didn't have to die in the first place, you wouldn't want to die. So you wouldn't, want to come into existence if you're being logically
superhuman dance. Do you understand the difference between error theory and moral non-objectivism?
Yes, I've already defined.
What's the difference?
Error theory and moral non-objectivism?
Yeah, what's the difference between error theory and moral non-objectivism?
Error theory is just a different form of nihilism. It's a different form of rejecting. It's saying that there's, you know, queerness in the world and all that stuff, and like we don't know whether or not it's true. You know, the argument.
No, that's actually the exact opposite of what error theory says. Error theory doesn't say we don't know if it's true.
Well, let's read the Stanford definition of encyclopedia on moral error theory. All right, so let's go down here and click error theory. Error theory, understanding the nature of an error theory is best done initially by example. So that first fucking definition it gives is the argument.
That's not the definition. That's the relation of understanding error theory.
Mackey's argument for moral error theory. It's you know.
That's an argument for error theory. That's not the definition of error theory.
Oh my god, dude, you're hopeless.
Okay, can you tell me?
You don't even want to discuss. You don't even want to discuss the argument.
By the way, I gave you the definition. I just read you. I gave you the definition. I just like said it.
Okay, say it again. Say it again.
Okay. So error theory is that moral statements do have truth value, but the value is false. Okay.
It's preposterous. So you're saying that you're an ethical. That's ethical nihilism then. So the value would be false. So there's no value to start with. You're saying
no. There is a value. There is a truth value to start. There is a truth value. It's just the value is false. So truth values can be true or false.
Good.
And ethical statements have a truth value, and the value is false.
It's a horribly contradictory statement. You don't have the value initially. It's a preposterous argument. You don't have the value initially.
Do you understand what truth value means?
You understand what you just said.
What is truth value?
Value initially, you don't have the. You don't understand.
What does truth value mean?
You think that you can have. What does true value mean?
What is truth value? What is truth value? What does it mean to have a truth value?
A truth value?
What does it mean to have a truth value?
Well, ultimately, if you want to talk about real things here, so that people can start to actually understand what the fuck is going on, okay? Pain is bad every single time when it doesn't have to happen. I'm sure you could agree on that, right?
Okay, what does it mean to have a truth value?
Why can't you just answer my question? We aren't getting anywhere with your bullshit.
To have a truth value.
You want to just continue getting nowhere?
I'm asking you what it means. If you'd like, I can tell you what it means to have a truth value, but I'm asking what it means to have a truth value.
What? I mean, so you're reading off.
You're saying it, you made a claim that that error theory is a self-contradictory statement. I'm trying to get you to understand. Okay, so what is you said? You said it's a contradictory statement because it's contradictory to have a truth value and that it's false. So I'm asking you, what does it mean to have a truth value? Do you understand what it means to have a truth value?
Yeah, something is more likely than unlikely. That's what a truth value is.
No, that's not what a truth value is.
That's what it should be.
Okay, but that's not what it is.
Well, that's what it should be. Okay, that's what truth.
That's not what the definition of a truth. That's not what truth value is. So truth value just means that things can be true or false. Things are true or false. It has a value to it. A value can be true or a value can be false. Okay, that's it. It has a.
Okay, that's fine. So great. Yeah. All right. So your definition is what? I mean, no one understands what the fuck you're saying. So do you want to start talking about things that
means that these statements can be true and they can be false.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's what it means to have
ethical statements can be true and can be false. Great.
Yeah, that's what it means to have the truth value. Now, error theorists.
Initially, after that, you said that all the values are false.
That's what an error theorist would say. An error theorist would say it has a truth value. It could be true or false, but all of the values are false. The values are false.
Okay, so all the values are false. So you're saying that there would be no basis upon which to build something?
Well, if you make any ethical statement, the ethical statement is false. That's what an error theorist would say.
Right. So do you think that pain is an objective feature of evolution or no?
I think pain pain is an objective physical feature of evolution. Yes.
Okay, great.
Now my question would be,
that it's more likely
that it doesn't physical effect of evolution.
Hold on. Jesus Christ. Let me fucking talk for a minute. For fuck's sake, you've been talking this whole time. You've been talking about all your little, things and trying to get fucking definition on me, okay? But you don't have to fucking do that. Just
the reason it's important to me is because the entire topic of our video was not based on normative theory. It was based on meta-ethical theory. So one meta-ethical theory we've covered was
No, yeah, you're okay. Hold on. So you're saying that, but you're discussing moral realism in the fucking video.
Yeah, that's what that's has to. That's a meta-ethical.
I'll take the timestamps out and everything of that video where you're like moral realism. So we're gonna discuss a moral, whether or not morals can be real. That's normative ethics. You're discussing
moral realism is meta ethics, not normative ethics.
Down to deontological versus consequential things.
Okay, so that's not what was discussed in the video. Consequentialism was not discussed in the video. Virtue ethics was not discussed in the video. Deontology was not discussed in the video either. Categorical imperatives were not discussed in the video. Kantianism was not discussed in the video.
We discussed. You discussed this in another video, which you
you made this video on our video that was we just made, and I am asking you what you disagreed with. Now it's important that we focus the conversation.
Error theory is fucking bullshit. It's bullshit.
Okay, so do you understand the difference between error theory and moral non-objectivism?
Define it with your definitions, because I have my definitions here. But if I make the arguments for this stuff, you literally shut that down.
Well, the reason.
Go ahead, define it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, sure. So moral non-objectivism is the statement that ethical statements are not objective. Ethical statements are subjective. It relates to this with it's mind dependent. It's not mind independent.
Okay, good. Now we're getting somewhere. All right, we're getting somewhere. Good.
When we talk about
it is subjective. Ethics and morals are ultimately, they are subjective in that you experience them subjectively, just like you experience numbers subjectively. And numbers in the real world, we don't know everything about all those equations. We can't get to the bottom of all those equations. But what we can ultimately know is that pain is bad when it doesn't have to happen. That's a reasonable.
And how can we know that?
We can know that pain is bad when it doesn't have to happen, because we can know that unnecessary pain is unnecessary. So if evolution
is something bad because it's unnecessary,
so evolution makes pain an objective fact. Okay,
and how do we know that's bad?
Objective fact because of embryonic development. Why is evolution a fact? You tell me. Now I get to drill you with intelligence shit.
Well, I accept it as a fact because it comports with my baseline assumed axioms, which is logic.
No, that's not a fucking definition. That's not the arguments for why. Why is evolution a fact? Tell me.
I consider it a fact because it's true with respect to my setup axioms, with my assumed axioms.
Well, what are the axioms?
It's derived. Oh yeah, so mathematics, logic. I accept math and I accept logic.
I'm asking you why evolution is a fact, and you can't even tell me why evolution is a fact. So
I just told you. I just told you. So it's a fact because it comports.
Mr. Intelligence over here, Mr. Medical Doctor, and he doesn't even know why evolution is a fact.
If you were listening, I actually just told you. It's a fact because I have assumed based axioms, which are mathematics, logic, and it comports with. It stems from that. It comports with that. The evidence is evident. It's evident to me based on the evidence that comports with my base level axioms.
Okay, which is not very good answers for this.
Okay, so I can explain what those mean if you'd like, if you don't understand it.
No, I understand it completely. It's just a preposterous answer for why evolution is true.
Okay, how is it preposterous?
Because evolution is true based on things just by itself, like the fossil record makes evolution true by itself.
Yep. As well as other things. The fossil record.
You think you can have thoughts about information you don't have or something? So why do you think that
endogenous retroviruses?
Listen, go ahead. So
there's endogenous retroviruses that are evidence for evolution and common ancestry.
No. Also homogeneous genes, right?
Yeah, homologs. Yep, absolutely.
And embryonic development.
And yep, so there's atavisms as well. So the other important thing is
what I'm saying. So okay,
but the central point is all of these things are particulars that are evidence, but the evidence needs to be interpreted, and the interpretation comports with logic, and based on logic itself, which is an axiom of mine, the conclusion is something that comports with that axiom, and that's how I get to evolution being an accepted fact. I can't know evolution is true without my axiom. I can't know evolution is true beyond my axiom.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I agree that you can't know something for certain, okay? But you can get
not even for certain. Like in terms of even in the statement that you could know something to a certain degree, that also runs into an issue. At the end of the day, you just have to accept and structure an axiom. And I can mathematically show you how it runs into an issue.
Logically consistent with that, then.
So
right?
here's the issue.
So would you like me to logically consistent with that? You'd have to reject evolution.
Well, no. The reason I accepted it, I don't think you're understanding. The reason I accept it is because at the base level, I bootstrap an axiom and just accept it without trying to say that I know it. That's the only way you can get around it. And I can mathematically show this to you if you'd like. So, for example, if you were to say that I know something with 90% certainty. Let's say I make that statement. I know evolution is true with 90% certainty.
In a couple of minutes.
Then the next question, you're over talking me. Would you like me to continue or? Okay, so the next question is, how do you know that you know evolution with 90% certainty, and with what confidence that you know evolution with 90%?
And you said math, though.
If your answer is anything less than 100%, what's going to happen is the total knowledge of percentage confidence reduces. So, for example, if you were to say, I know that I know evolution is true with 90% certainty with a 90% certainty, so I'm 90% certain that I know evolution is true with 90% certain, mathematically, you only know it to be true with 81%. And you can keep asking this question ad infinitum until it actually reaches the limit and approaches 0%. So the way around it,
we've already been, no, listen, we've already gone through this.
The way around it
now I get to talk.
The way around that is to say, at some level, I assume it to be true.
Okay, so
it's not a claim that I know it at the base level of my axiom. I'm not claiming that I know knowledge. I'm not claiming that I know logic. It's just the base level I assume it to be true. The statement that I could know something.
Great. All right. So good. So how you're subjectivist?
Yeah, I would say I'm a subjectivist.
Okay. Great. We're getting there. All right. So. Okay. So hold on one second. So
anti-realism can be broken down into three.
So you're going to claim for a second. You're going to claim that something is true for one person, but not for someone else. When in fact it is true for everyone. It's objective. It's as
objective doesn't mean universal.
So hold on. It's objective as demonstrated. You didn't let me You didn't let me talk, dude. You've done nothing but try to talk over me this whole time when I'm just trying to lay down facts because you don't.
I wanted to answer something you said. You said
evidence. Okay. So listen, claiming something is true for one person, but not for someone else, when in fact it is true for everyone. Pain is bad in this case. Okay. As is demonstrated by empirical evidence. Okay. Pain is bad when it doesn't have to happen in the first place. When it doesn't have to happen in the first place, it's bad. So
how do you know pain? So how do you know pain is bad?
So listen, you're being a subjectivist right now. You're
yep.
Yes, great. Okay, so good. You're a subjectivist. So logical form of this, okay, would be, person one claims that Y is true, and person two claims that Y is true for some people, but not for everyone, right?
That's a unit. You're confusing universality with subjective. There's subjective and objective distinction is not the same thing between the universal relative distinction. Do you understand the difference between those two things?
Just so you don't agree with this statement here.
All I'm saying is that you've conflated. You've said to me, it seems like you've said because something is subjective, then it is and then you went on to its universality. The universality, relative, and universal are not the same things as subjective and objective. Do you understand the difference?
Universal, whatever. Okay, so just settle down. Just do you agree with this statement right here? Okay, so just yes or no. All right. Unnecessary pain is unnecessary.
Yeah.
Okay.
By definition.
Good. So, and the way that you know that pain is real, ultimately, if you're going to use the most empirical evidence that you can use, is that evolution is real. Okay. And evolution is real because we know that, embryonic development is true. Homogeneous genes are true.
We know them with respect to our assumed axioms. To the extent that our axioms are true, those things are true.
So yeah, exactly. What I've established this whole thing on already.
Yeah.
What I started this whole thing out with is that we can only know.
So what do you disagree with in our video?
The fact that you're not talking about negative utilitarianism, which is what I'm talking about.
What you disagree with in our video is the fact that negative utilitarianism was not mentioned in our video?
Yeah, and you're discussing moral.
We were discussing meta ethics, not normative theory.
but you mentioned moral realism, which is ultimately
we mentioned moral realism, which has to do with metaethics, not normative theory.
Yeah, I mean, it can have to do with.
No, it can't. By definition, we can look it up. A definition. It's not. Nope. Moral realism is not a normative theory. Normative theories are things like deontology, consequentialism, virtue ethics, pluralism, intuitivism. So those are normative theories.
Okay.
What we were not discussing, those are all things we were not discussing. Yeah. What we were discussing is meta ethics. So moral realism.
Your video, but I listened for 45 minutes, and you guys were discussing moral, whether or not things can be real or not, meta ethics, this type of shit.
Yeah, that's what we were discussing. We were not discussing normative.
Watch my video that I initially made debunking what they were saying about positive versus negative rights. Okay. And
we're talking about the video that you made a live stream about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see.
So what do you disagree with in that video? It has nothing to do with moral normative theories. What it had to do with?
No, it does. It can have to.
No, it didn't.
It does. So you're saying that you're subjective.
It's the founding.
It does. It follows from meta ethics.
What do you disagree? What do you disagree with? What do you disagree with in our video in relation to our meta-ethical theories? Not the normative theories. We weren't discussing about normative theories.
The meta-ethical theories are pointless to discuss when we already have evidence that takes us back to where things start. Okay, we already understand those things up until a certain point. So you don't want to asking a question about something that is that you don't have any evidence for in the first place to ask the question. Like, for example, if someone says God done it, right? All right, they are just making that premise, right? Do you believe in God? Are you? You're an atheist? Okay, you're an atheist.
I would say, strictly technically speaking, I would have to say I'm agnostic.
All right, well, you're agnostic. Okay, so that's preposterous. All right, so which kind of
what's preposterous? Hold on.
Well, what kind of agnostic are you? Are you a deist?
No, I'm not a deist. Deist is not an agnostic. Do you understand the difference between a deist and hold on, wait. Do you understand the difference between a deist and an agnostic? How am I a deist?
For it. What arguments do you think there are that are persuasive for a God that you're not an atheist, you're an agnostic?
Do you understand what I mean when I say I'm agnostic? Because it doesn't mean deist.
Yeah, I understand what you mean, but do you think that the deist arguments are persuasive, and that's why?
No, I don't think the deist arguments are persuasive.
Okay, so why are you an agnostic then?
Why am I agnostic? Because I don't believe I can know with 100% certainty that an entity does not exist.
Okay, so you also can't know for 100% certainty in any murder case. Okay.
Yeah. So when I'm agnostic, so do you
think that we shouldn't convict people of murder? Because of that?
Well, no, that's not what I said. I don't also live my life as if God exists. I live my life. I live my life in.
It's recording. It's gonna be recorded.
Well, I know it's gonna. I'm glad it will be recorded. But if you would like me to,
being subjective about whether or not you think that a murderer can be convicted of murder, if you're going to be saying these types of topics.
Look. Do you want me to answer?
You want to be a logically consistent subjectivist and just be like, we can't know anything, because we don't know 100% for certain, even though we can figure out exactly that, the gun that the murderer
I live my life. I don't live my life like as if a God exists. I don't live my life as if it's a 50-50. I live my life as if I'm highly unconvinced and unpersuaded. And I would say the same thing in the murder case. I would say we should act the same way. And I'm saying.
Hold on, but listen, when promoted with evidence and when you deny evidence.
I'm not denying evidence. Okay, so now you're conflating. So when I say evidence, all the point is that I'm making is that we're talking about how you know what you know and if you can know anything for certainty. Now, it doesn't mean we shouldn't operate based on certain principles.
And I started this debate out by answering your questions cordially.
I accept certain.
We can certainly know more. We can make it more likely than unlikely. And you've done nothing but
so no. Strictly speaking,
intelligence over me as though that was an argument.
Strictly speaking,
so you have fucking definitions of things and stuff like that. Well, how is that a fucking argument for your position? It's not. You were being a total asshole. So hold on. So listen. So you're a subjectivist. You're a moronic fucking subjectivist. Now shut the fuck up and listen. Claiming that something is true for one person but not for someone else, when in fact it is true for everyone. So it's an objective, as demonstrated by
That's universal. So that's the claim that it is universal.
It's a subjectivist fallacy. Okay, so it would be the same thing as saying.
Do you understand that subjective and objective do not mean universal and relative?
The most healthy habit to start from, right? You know, smoking might not be the most healthy thing to start from, right? And I'm just saying that, and then you say smoking is unhealthy for most people, but not for me.
That's a straw man.
Ultimately, smoking is unhealthy for everybody. Okay, so it's a subjectivist fallacy.
Yeah, certain things. So certain things are relative, and certain things are objective, and certain things are relative, and certain things are universal, and certain things are objective, and certain things are subjective. These are very different things, and they relate to different things, and they're orthogonal to each other. So the objectivity of something and the subjectivity of something is orthogonal to the universality of something and relativity of something. You understand that?
Hold on, I gotta Google this word orthogonal real quick, as I think every other human did.
Orthogonal.
So, yeah, all right. So, of or involving right angles. Okay, so right angles. So it's orthogonal.
In other words, the objectivity of something, the mind independentness of something, doesn't necessarily relate, doesn't follow from the objectivity that it's universal, and the subjectivity of something doesn't necessarily mean it's relative. You can have subjective things that are universal, it's possible, and you could have certain objective things that are relative.
Okay, but
and vice versa.
So, but you're saying that you don't think that pain is bad is an objective feature? Do you think that's
it would depend. So certain people, there are actually certain people who experience pain as well-being, believe it or not. They're pain receptors. If you
unnecessary pain. So we're talking about
unnecessary stimulation of their type C fibers would result in them experiencing well-being. Type C nociceptors would result them. There are some people.
Right. In the context of the argument, though, which is that it doesn't have to exist in the first place if you never come into existence.
No, I understand. But what I'm saying is that the point I'm trying to make.
No, you don't understand because you're talking about already existing. So that's not understanding. You were talking about
again, all I'm trying to illustrate to you is the difference between universality and subjectivism. Because something is subjective, it does not therefore mean that it is universal.
And not existing.
Certain subjective things are also certain things that are subjective are also can be relative, and certain things that are subjective can be universal. That's the difference.
Yeah. Okay. So you're talking about meta-ethics, right?
Yes, meta-ethics.
Great. So where did the universe start from? Where do you think it started from?
The consensus among physicists in a temporal realm, it would be from the Big Bang. It started at that spatial temporal.
Big Bang? This is what you're ultimately asking.
This is an unknown.
Who made the Big Bang?
We don't actually know the answer to that question, and we don't know, and we also don't know if it was ever made, or if it's just a B theory of time perspective from a four-dimensional. Do you understand what I mean when I say that, or from a B theory of time standpoint?
Yeah.
What is a B theory of time standpoint?
B theory of time standpoint?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like whether or not time existed for before or after?
No. That's not what B theory of time means.
Explain what you mean, then.
B theory of time, essentially, you would look at the universe from the start to beginning of the universe, and as opposed to the A theory of time.
My point.
Well, you said you understood what B theory of time means. Would you like me to explain it to you? I mean, you wanted me to explain it to you. You just gave the wrong definition of the B theory of time.
Okay, just settle down, dude. All right.
Well,
so listen. The point is that you are.
I answered your question by invoking the B theory of time.
You're asking the point of you're derailing the topic.
I answered your question with the B theory of time from a B theory of time standpoint, and I asked you if you knew what I meant by that answer. You said yes, and I asked you to define it. You couldn't. You gave the wrong definition.
Yeah, we don't have to discuss that right now. We can discuss what I'm saying right now, which is that you're asking a stupid question by discussing meta-ethics.
It was actually an answer. You asked me the origins of the universe. I gave you an answer.
Ultimately, you'd be a subjectivist twat, which is what you've already fucking said you were, basically. Okay, that you think that you can deny fucking objective empirical things, which is just based on the fact that you can't know it for certain. You think you can do that?
I answered your question.
You think you can do that?
With invoking the B theory of time.
I mean, you're not answering my question.
No. I answered your question. You asked me about the universe. You asked me about the origin of the universe. My answer would be related to the B theory of time.
Universal shit.
I'm asking, and I made sure you. Okay.
That's a stupid answer because you don't have the answer for.
Do you understand my answer? Do you understand what my answer is?
Back to that and get back to that, to the point where you just think that like you asking where did the universe start is a great fucking question without any evidence, by the way. So you have to use the evidence to answer whether. No, shut up, dude. You have to use.
Do you want me to answer it?
You have to use the evidence to. You have to use the evidence to discuss whatever it is that you're about to discuss. So ultimately, you have to use features of the world that we already know.
Yeah, sure. And my evidence would be the relativity, the theory of relativity, which comports with the B theory of time. And the B theory of time allows us to look at the universe more as the spatiotemporality of the universe more as a yardstick from a start and stop point. And so the answer to what happened before the Big Bang, the answer may actually just be that the universe always existed, always meaning throughout all of time, and it just has it has a start point the same way that a yardstick has a start point, and it may have an end point, just like a yardstick may have an end point. And so the key here, and this is something that even the Christian philosopher William Lane Craig actually admitted, that the Kalam cosmological argument doesn't actually work if the B theory of time is the case. That's why he spent so much time trying to reject the B theory of time. So in any case, my answer to this is we actually don't know. It could be anything. It could be a whole bunch of things. But one thing it could be is that the universe just has a start point the same way a yardstick has a start point. And to ask what came before that is just to ask what spatially came before that and wouldn't make sense. So it has because what begins to exist only necessarily has a cause in the sense that things that come into existence have a cause, but in the sense that things begin to exist. So for example, the yardstick can begin to exist doesn't necessarily have a cause. So that's my answer to you. Now, do you understand what I just said? Do you understand the point I was trying to make with the B theory of time?
Yes.
What is it? What was I trying to say?
What I'm trying to say. It's irrelevant.
Well, no, could you just tell me what I was trying to, can you just explain back to me what I was trying to say?
Twat, shut up. It's off topic. It's off topic.
Well, you asked me the question. I gave you the answer. So I'm just making sure you understand what my answer is.
Listen, my point is that you can't know for certain where things start from, where it came from. Okay, we can only, if you have the answers to this, by all means tell me. But yeah, we could discuss the B theory.
I don't know it in the deep sense. No, I don't know it for certainty. I didn't claim to know it for certainty.
Okay,
I don't know it for certainty. So I'm gonna
settle down. All right, so you can't understand where the start.
Yeah, I don't know it for certainty. So I'm just gonna ask you again.
Yourself. That's really fun.
I'm gonna ask you again.
That's really fucking up this whole conversation.
So I'm gonna ask you, what do you not understand? What do you not understand from my answer, and how it relates to your disagreement in our original video?
I understand what you just said. It's off topic. It's preposterous. There's no reason to discuss it. What we are discussing right now is meta-ethics, and you're trying to say that you can't discuss normative ethics at all. You can't discuss evolution is true. You can't discuss any of these topics.
The topic of our video was meta-ethics. We don't have the start
figured out. We don't have the start figured out of meta-ethics. Therefore, we can't discuss anything and everything.
That's not what I said.
Figure anything out.
What I said was we made a video on meta-ethics. We did not make a video. When your response in your live stream, it was a response to our meta-ethics video.
Positive versus negative rights.
But that's not
preposterously wrong.
Yep, that was a video we made. Yep, that was a video we made in the past, and we made a video now about meta-ethics. Now, it seems you disagreed with some things in our meta-ethical video, so I am asking you what you disagreed with in our video of meta-ethics.
Listen, and you mentioned moral, you're talking about how to derive things from real versus not.
The founding of our moral structures.
I've already established this in this video, okay? But you talking about pragmatism, and I discussed, or we discussed it earlier on in this, what pragmatic meant, okay? And the fact that you thought that axioms and pragmatism were separate, but then you thought that also that you can have it.
Well, they are. You can have an axiom that is pragmatism. You can have that as an axiom.
That's what I was just going to say. I was just going to say that. You can also have the axiom that builds pragmatism as well, okay? But the axioms are what establishes things. Better axioms than just not, proper axioms, right? Like you can have a premise, like somebody can have the premise God done it, and that could be their axiom. Okay, but it's a preposterous axiom because we know that there's no deist gods because we can look around us. Do you know why you've been doing this asshole shit to me this whole time. So do you know why there's no deist God?
Why there is no deist God? I I reject the evidence. That I'm not convinced by the evidence for a deist.
Okay, well, what is the evidence that there is no deist God?
I don't have evidence that there is no deist God. I just reject it on the nature that
you do. You have. There is evidence. There's information. I can't establish proof that there is no deist God. Yeah, well, it's just something, because that which is asserted without evidence can be rejected without evidence. That's actually, you know what, Christopher Hitchens. Yeah, I mean, come on, dude.
It's true.
Smoker. He was that would. Right, so just
wait, hold on. How is what I said not valid? Wait. No, it's a true statement. Like that which can be asserted without evidence can be rejected without evidence. You were responding and saying Christopher Hitchens smoked and drank. How is that relevant?
Yeah, hold on. So he's a dumbass, but he didn't have a lot of information.
Wait,
what I was just saying. All right, so let me define for you why, since you can't define the evidence why there's no deist God. I mean, you have not. You just said that.
You're trying to define evidence for why there's no deist God?
Yeah. Go ahead.
By definition,
there's
evidence is a particular about reality. It's not something that it is by definition. It's evidence is a particular. If you're asking me to define evidence why there's no deist God, my answer to you.
I'm asking you to define the evidence. There's arguments for this, dickhead.
My argument is that there is
no. You don't have the arguments. You don't even know.
My argument is that I see no evidence for a deist God. Therefore, I do not accept. Therefore, I do not accept the deist God. That which is asserted without evidence can be rejected without evidence. So the proposition that I believe in a deist God would be false.
True.
So it would be untrue to say that I believe
that you don't have that you could evaluate later on. Okay. So if you can actually, that you might be able to evaluate by looking farther into the argument, right? So like you want that information.
Convince me of it. I guess I would accept it if that really happens. But
yeah, it really does happen.
But the point is that no. What do you mean? There is evidence.
I'll define that right now. I'll define why there's no deist God right now.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so here we go. Since you don't want to, so I will. Okay, there's no deist God because it's, you know, you would have to say that creating a couple hundred million years of sentient life here on planet Earth, having its intestines ripped out and dying, you know, just of being eaten alive, of, you know, hundreds of trillions of this instance happening in different organisms. You would have to say that was intelligent. That was something that an intelligent being would do. Okay. And then also simultaneously create all of calculus and logic. So he'd have to be a complete dumbass to create that initially, and then also create all of calculus. So there's no possible way a God done it in that area. Okay, you can know.
Why
like
does it have to be that a God is intentionally doing it? I mean, that deism doesn't commit benevolence, or deism doesn't commit an omniscience.
It wouldn't be intelligence. It wouldn't be a super intelligence. He wouldn't have omnipotence. He wouldn't have anything like that. So he wouldn't be able to create everything. If he
deism
contradictory shit. He creates contradictory shit. If he creates
deist God would be able to create it, but it just wouldn't intervene. I think that's the idea, right? The deist God wouldn't be intervening at all. It would just be setting up something and pressing the button or pressing go.
Yeah. Okay, so hold on. So he would have to be a fireman that starts fires, right?
Well, a deist God would set up. No, not necessarily. You're presupposing that the deist God would think that these suffering things are wrong in the first place. A deist God doesn't have to care. It doesn't have to care about suffering or anything like that.
Is bad. I mean, we can see
it doesn't have to view suffering as bad. A deist God.
In the first place, it's bad. When suffering
no. How is it? How do you know it's bad if it doesn't have to happen in the first place? Just because something is unnecessary doesn't make it bad.
So you think that unnecessary pain is necessary somehow?
No, that's not what I said.
Okay. All right. Well, you just said, why do you think that? I mean,
no, I'm saying the fact that something is necessary or unnecessary is orthogonal. No, it's not. All right, I'm saying that something is necessary or is unnecessary is strictly speaking orthogonal to whether it is good or bad. Now, what I'm saying is that you said a deist God couldn't do any of these things. So you have an argument that a deist God couldn't do these things in a world that generates pain because that would be bad. What I'm saying is, from the perspective of the deist God, might not regard that as bad.
Like a fireman that starts fires, and he would have The intelligent.
No, it doesn't have to be a fireman in the first place. It doesn't. A fireman is, you're presupposing a fireman is someone who views that fire is bad. Or it could be a fireman that doesn't view that fire is bad.
Great. Well, it's insane then, because it is bad. It is bad.
Well, how do you know? Okay, well, how do you know it's
Mars? Because you think about Mars.
How do you know it's bad?
So think about Mars for a second. There's no negativity happening on Mars.
How do you know there's no negativity happening on Mars?
Because there's no sentient life to experience that. Do you want to say that you think that there can be negativity where there's no
about negativity from an objective standpoint, that it is negative that there is nothing there, or there's negative, or are you talking about negativity from a subjective standpoint or objective standpoint?
Negativity, like it doesn't have to happen in the first place, okay?
Negativity means, so anything that doesn't have to happen in the first place.
Yeah, let's talk about it from an objective standpoint.
Okay, so if I don't need, hold on, just to be clear. So if I don't need to take this and raise it up and down, and I did it anyway, if it was unnecessary for me to do that, is that negativity?
No, there would be, no. Listen, yeah, I mean, yeah, ultimately, yeah, because it didn't even have to happen in the first place.
So so if an asteroid hits a planet somewhere that didn't involve any sentient life, and it didn't have to happen, but it happened anyway, is that negativity?
No, there'd be no negativity there.
But it was unnecessary.
If it
was unnecessary.
Well, no, if there was no life involved, though, it wouldn't be negative.
So anything that involves life that is unnecessary is negativity.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so self-replicating cells that don't necessarily need to self-replicate, that do anyway, that's negativity.
No, neurons. When it starts to feel feel pain. When it starts to feel pain, it's negative.
Okay, so now that's a different definition. Okay, so
no, it's not a different definition. It's the same definition.
Well, all I'm saying is that the necessity of something relates. The necessity of something that relates to a lot of things. There are a lot of things in the world that can be classified as necessary and unnecessary. Okay, the fact that something is necessary or unnecessary doesn't tell you if it's negative or positive. Now, you can, some things that are unnecessary can be negative or positive, and some things that are unnecessary.
You suck. Hold on. You have to focus for a second, okay? So unnecessary pain is unnecessary. It's just to establish what is the problem with existing in the first place, okay? So if it doesn't have to happen, then there's no.
Okay, and the point of metaethics is what is your founding, and how do you know that these things are bad, these things are negative?
Yeah,
you're trying to self-define it by necessary.
Understand what science is, which is ultimately just working back.
Mm-hmm.
It's working back to a point, right? Is it not?
Yeah, it's working back to a point. And how do you know that point is justified?
Because we know that pain is bad. We know that.
How do you know that pain is bad?
Thing.
How do you know that pain is bad?
Because unnecessary pain is unnecessary. And
the fact that something is unnecessary make it bad?
Yeah, when you come into existence.
Okay, wait. So just to be clear, everything that is unnecessary is bad.
Dude,
everything unnecessary bad.
It's insane. I mean, it's just like, have you been watching this? Yeah. I mean, how often has he been talking over me? A lot. She says a lot. Dude, it's been preposterous.
If you haven't been talking over me, we can do a recap of the video if you'd like and see who overtalks who. But honestly, I'm trying to get you to answer the question: is everything that is unnecessary necessarily bad?
That's not the initial argument. The initial argument is that coming into existence is always a serious harm, and not coming into existence is simply.
Okay, then that's begging the question, because how do you know coming into
existence? Talking over me at the end of it, and just shut up for a second. Coming into existence is always a serious harm, and not coming into existence is simply not a serious harm. Okay, so pain is bad. So unnecessary pain is unnecessary. By definition? And so like death would be unnecessary. You wouldn't have to that wouldn't have to happen. If you do this, then you create infinity vegans. There's no chance for them to Holocaust animals. Okay.
Okay. So is the fact that something is unnecessary make it bad?
Dude, that's not the argument.
How do you know that something being unnecessary is bad?
Man, that's not an argument.
Okay, well, how do you know that unnecessary pain is bad?
How do you know unnecessary pain is bad?
Yeah.
Do you want to die? Have you ever heard that?
Does the fact that I want to die make it bad? I don't want to die, but I can't prove that it's objectively bad.
Otherwise, yeah, you can't prove that. You can't prove whether it's objectively bad. Again, so you can't prove whether or not the murderer is the murderer. You can't prove whether or not evolution is true or not, based on your logic right now. You can't prove whether or not evolution is true or not. You can't prove whether or not a murderer is a murderer, based on your logic. You can't prove whether or not, I don't know, anything else that we have empirical evidence for. You are a subjectivist twat and a subjectivist.
So what the point of the founding, the point of our video,
rational discord whatsoever.
The point of meta-ethical discourse is the founding of what we know and who we know if anything with certainty is real, or with any degree of certainty is real, and that was what we were discussing. Now I'm going to redirect again.
No, we can be more. We can be more sure than unsure.
How can we?
Because we can be more sure than unsure.
How do we know? How do we know that we could be more sure than unsure? How do we know that we could be more sure than unsure?
Observations of the world.
How do we know that evidence makes us more sure than unsure?
How do we know a murderer is a murderer based on evidence?
How do we know that the observational evidence makes us more sure than unsure?
How do we know evolution is true?
How do we know that the observational evidence makes it more true than untrue?
Yeah, I'm the one talking over you. Yeah, sure.
How do we know? If you dodge the question, I will cut in. How do we know that the observational evidence makes it more true than untrue?
You're saying unnecessary. You're asking me a straw man argument.
How do we know that the evidence makes it more true than untrue?
You want me to say pinpricks though? Oh yes, pinpricks they're not bad. Is that what you want to say?
How do we know that the observational evidence makes it more necessarily true than untrue?
Is that what you're saying? Well, that's not the argument, douchebag. The argument is that coming into existence is always a serious harm.
How do we know?
Coming into existence. Coming into existence is always a serious harm. And
how do we know that the observational?
I can't mute him. Coming into existence.
How do we know that the observational evidence?
Why can't I mute you?
It necessarily harm?
Shut the fuck up.
How do we know that observational evidence makes it
always a serious harm? Not coming into.
How do we know that observational evidence?
That is the argument at hand.
How do we know that observational evidence makes it more likely true than not true?
How do we know that observational evidence makes it more likely true than not true? Yeah. That question answers itself. The evidence that's there answers itself. If there's evidence for a murderer being a murderer, we convict the murderer.
How do you know that that's evidence for the murderer being a murderer?
We understand that evolution is true.
How do you know that that's evidence for the murderer being a murderer?
Because doesn't anyone see how stupid the question that he just asked me was? I mean, surely you guys have to see how silly and how much of a silly asshole this type of shit is, this subjectivist shit. You'd have to start saying we can't convict murderers. We can't know whether evolution is true.
Straw man arguments, logical fallacy, straw man arguments.
No, they're not fucking straw man arguments. You're making straw man arguments.
I asked the question. Questions are questions arguments? I asked the question. A question is not an argument. How do you know that the evidence for a murderer is valid?
I've answered it a bunch of times.
How do you know the evidence is valid?
It answers itself. The evidence.
Are you saying it's self-evident?
If there's things that are evident about that topic that are.
How confident are you in the evidence? How do you know that you can be confident in the evidence?
You can be confident in the evidence because the evidence piles up. It's, when there's evidence for something.
How can you be confident in the piling up of the evidence?
Because you have base axioms that you might have to assume. Yeah, you might have to assume that. Great job. Great job. Great job, dude. You might have to, you have to assume determinism. Yes, in order to figure out all of physics. In order to figure out all. Yeah, you have to assume determinism. Yeah, if you want to do that, you have to assume determinism to figure out all of physics, to figure out all of evolution.
I'm talking about assuming logic.
Without any sort of subjectivist shit. If we followed what you're saying right now, we wouldn't be able to figure out evolution. We wouldn't be able to.
Straw man argument. Logical fallacy. Straw man argument.
No, it's true. If we follow
that's not what I'm saying. If we do assume it, if we do accept the axioms to be true,
know for certain.
If we do accept the axioms to be true,
we have to make assumptions initially in our base axioms.
Yeah.
Great job. Good job. That's what I've been saying all the whole time, idiot.
So this was the point of our video. So what do you disagree with in our video?
Because you guys aren't discussing this shit in depth. You were wrong in other videos.
So wait. So just to be clear, you don't disagree with us in this video?
I responded to 2 minutes of that video when you guys joined my channel, Jeff.
Yeah, you were mentioning things you disagreed with. So what do you disagree with in that video?
And what I disagreed with in that video was the shit that you fucking were spewing about, positive and negative rights and all that shit.
We weren't talking about positive and negative rights in that video.
Yeah, listen, you're talking about moral stuff. All right.
And we were talking about meta ethics. We were talking about meta ethics.
Every time you use the word moral, you're fucking wrong.
We were talking about meta ethics.
Every single
not normative theory.
You use the word moral, you are wrong.
The title of your video was lots. The title of your video. The title of your video.
Do you understand what? You said the word moral in the debate. You said the word moral in that video.
The title of your video was lots of fails.
Every single time. Listen. Every single time.
Lots of fails. So tell me what you disagreed with. The title of your video was lots of fails. So tell me all the lots of fails that were in the video.
Okay, that's what we're getting at. And that's what I've been doing this whole time, actually.
Yeah. So what are the lots of fails that were in the video?
Moral. Every time you use the term moral, okay, and you discuss the term moral. So if you ask somebody,
it's how we know our moral. It's how we know the nature of our moral grounding and what it is. That's meta ethics.
Yeah. Okay. So great. Yeah. You have to assume a base axiom, but certain axioms.
So do you disagree
can we agree
with
on this? Can we agree on this? Certain axioms build. Listen. Certain axioms build things, and other axioms don't build them.
There are things that, there's relators and operators of normative systems as structured as a base axiom. Now, what do you so that's what we were talking about in our video. So now that you said our video had lots of fails, what in that video that had lots of fails, what do you disagree with?
The fails initially with using, anytime you use the word moral, okay, you're talking about the individual. All right, and the individual doesn't build.
Okay, so we're gonna go. We're gonna go back to the Stanford Encyclopedia Dictionary or the IEP for morals and how it not necessarily applies, and if it necessarily applies to the individual.
You have to have systems. We've already done this before. Okay, we've already been over this.
What is wrong by saying the word moral as it relates to how we know the founding of our morals?
Okay, so systems make ethics, and then ethics make other ethics. It doesn't happen in the way that like someone just observes something and has a thought. I'm sorry. It doesn't happen in the way that someone has a thought first and then about the information and then the information. That's not how it happens. It happens with the information has to be there first, right? So you can't just have an individual making their own moral system. No, it's made by ethics that are around them, that are influencing that moral system.
An individual cannot structure a moral system based on their base axiom?
Okay, it's an ethical system. So
an individual cannot structure a moral system or ethical system?
By themselves completely without information first?
If they have a certain axiom, if I as an individual say...
No. I'm saying without any information. So they can't do it without.
Oh, you're talking about a priori, not a priori, from nothing, from before existing.
Yeah, they have it from nothing.
Yeah. So basically, we were making fun of the term a priori too. So what do you disagree with in our video?
I don't disagree with that.
What do you disagree with in our video?
The only thing I disagree with, listen, is using.
You said lots of fails.
Yeah, using the term moral. Every time you said the word moral, you're failing.
How?
Every time.
How?
Because ethics and morals are completely freaking separate things, and ethics build other ethics. It's not morals building. It's not people that can have thoughts about information that they don't have, is it? It's people that are having the information first and then being shown that information, and then they can have the thoughts about the information.
Do you deny moral axioms can be structured?
No, ethical axioms can be established. Moral axioms can't be established. They're subjective. Just like
so moral. Oh wait. So the fact that they cannot be structured is because they are subjective.
Because ethics builds other ethics, right? Yeah.
Moral axioms don't construct branch into other relators and operators based on what the axiom is.
Unless you think you can have thoughts about information that you don't have, which obviously you can't do.
We assume if you assume a moral axiom. So let's say I assume that I would like the well-being to suffering ratio to be optimized as a consequentialist would. That's bootstrapped as an axiom as an individual. Are there relators and operators that logically follow from that system?
Say that one more time. You lagged. It sucks.
Okay, so let's say I as an individual bootstrap a moral axiom. Let's say it's consequentialism that well-being and suffering ought to be optimized. The question is, are there relators and operators that follow from that statement? Do logical things, okay, so then it's a system. Yeah, then it's a moral system. Then it is a moral system.
There's no such thing as moral systems. Morals are individuals. Morals are built on individuals.
Okay, let's start from the beginning again. Do you deny the existence of moral axioms?
No, there are ethical axioms.
Okay. So do you
Not moral axioms. There's no such thing. Morals are stupid, dude. They were built by religions and things, okay? They are preposterous. Ethics are what build other ethics. And the way that those ethics are established are what builds those ethics. No one talks about veganism without comparing things like when they're trying to persuade people, like, you know, with other information, right? That they have, that those people don't have, like dogs. Obviously, a dog is, why are they consistent with a dog not being holocausted for its meat, and they're consistent with a pig being holocausted for its meat? What's the difference between the dog and the pig? Those are ethical arguments. These are systems that we already have in place that we're making to establish other ethics. So there's no morals, there's ethics that establish other ethics, unless you think you can have thoughts about information that you don't have. So you shouldn't have to assume that humans have moral value. If they came into existence, they have ethical value based on the fact that pain is bad. And pain is bad because of evolution. And evolution is true because of embryonic development, homogeneous genes, et cetera, and so forth. Okay, down the list.
So you're confusing in right now. You're confusing in is for an ought. So the fact that pain exists in evolution.
There's no confusion here.
Okay, so you said that pain exists in evolution. So that's a physical fact, right? Okay. Does the fact that pain exists in evolution does it follow from that pain ought not exist?
When it doesn't have to in the first place?
Okay, so if something doesn't have, okay, so how do you know that?
Because Mars. You think about Mars or anyone with no sentient life, okay?
So you know that pain that doesn't have to exist ought not exist because Mars.
Because, all right, so look, we'll use this one, okay? So look at inside this. Do you see any sentient life inside this bottle right now?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So do you think that there's negativity happening in this bottle right here?
It depends how you define negativity. It depends on your.
There's no sentient life to experience it. All right. So there's no sentient life to experience the negativity that's in this bottle. That would be. In this bottle.
I would say that would be correct.
Yeah. So there's no negativity in the bottle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Well, no. If you define negativity as a sentient being, experiencing negativity, or so, for example, like so, if someone wants to define negativity as the lack of sentience experiencing well-being, they would say there is negativity in that bottle. So it depends how you define it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying. So pain is the negativity I'm talking about. There's no pain in this bottle, right?
Yeah. So you're saying negativity is defined as pain, unnecessary pain. So if someone were to say to you, well, negativity is defined as the lack of well-being, then they would look at the bottle and say that there is negativity.
No. Okay. So well-being.
Yeah, that's what they would.
Yeah, I know that they would, but okay. So
yeah. So it's just based on how you're defining it.
Okay. Yes, but now let's define well-being. It's not just based on how we're defining it. So let's define well-being.
Just before we go into that, now I don't want to get off topic, because the point is that you said we were failing every time we were using morals.
Yes, you are.
And that would entail the denial of moral axioms, because if you structure something.
No. I said ethical axioms. You could go back in the recording.
Okay, so if I say I have a moral axiom, what do I mean?
You mean that you have an individual axiom that you can build without fucking any influences from the outside world? It's preposterous.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying as an individual, I structure this.
Morals mean, dude. They're based on the individual. They're based on personal choice.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's an individual, but that doesn't, nothing in your definition, nothing in the definition entailed a priori.
Thoughts about information that they don't have.
Is there anything in the definition that entailed a priori?
Yeah, it's
what in the okay, would you like to go look up the definition of moral?
You would have to have omnipotence in order to be able to individually have information without first getting access to that information.
Anything within that definition of morals necessitate a priori, an a priori nature of morality.
I really have to, because I'm exploding. I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay, have fun.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, I guess, does anyone have any questions in the chat while we wait for him to finish his urination?
All right, I'm back.
Never mind.
All right, good, excellent. So,
yeah,
okay,
so I just looked up the definition of morality, Stanford Encyclopedia, and morality can be used as either one, describe or refer to certain codes of conduct put forth by society or a group, or accepted by an individual, for their own behavior. That is the definition in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Okay, so how were we failing when we were using the word morality?
Yeah, well, that's just a really anything to do with the individual. I mean, the Stanford definition.
Yeah, it relates to society or a group or accepted by an individual for their own behavior. So how are we failing when we were using the word morality?
Okay, well, that's the wrong definition based on what
It's the wrong definition. That's the This is from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. That's the definition from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. How is that the wrong definition?
Based on all of the, based on law. Law uses
based on law. Where we're talking about philosophy, and we just talking about philosophical. Philosophical study of morals.
Established than the Stanford Encyclopedia.
In philosophy, law is more in philosophy. The definitions we're working with are important, and the sources that we're looking for is a philosophical source to describe morality. I'm using the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which is and what are you using? What are you using as relating as a philosophical source?
Why do you think that the individual exists in the form of they can have thoughts about information that they don't have? Is what we really should be asking you. Where do you think that a person can have thoughts about information that they don't have?
Red herring. What does that have to do with anything?
Well, they can't. There's no individual.
Yeah. What does that have to do with anything? So what does that have to do? That's what does that necessitate a priori? What do you? Why? How is the word morality necessitate a priori knowledge?
The terms that they use for all of litigious society, all of the system of law, and you're discussing what they're fucking using for some sort of fucking
philosophy. I mean, we're having a philosophical.
You're just it's so silly. It's just silly.
With philosophical conversation.
Is silly.
We made a video discussing philosophy,
like morals and ethics,
and we were talking about morals as they relate to the philosophical definition. This was a philosophical conversation. So where were the lots of fails in our video?
Every time you use the word morals, and it's defined as
descriptively to refer to certain codes or conduct put forward by a society or group or accepted by an individual for their own behavior.
So do you think that people can establish facts based on personal choice?
Can I establish facts based on personal choice?
Yes, based on personal choice.
It's the fact that I personally decided to do something. In that sense, it's a fact. But other than that, I don't see.
There's no.
It would relate if
you'd have to be able to listen. You'd have
again,
so you would have to have the no.
You're not.
You would have to have.
So again, if you're talking about the correspondence theory of truth, if you're talking about the correspondence theory,
really sucks. Not being able to mute you really sucks.
So if we're talking about the correspondence theory of truth, then the answer to that would be no, unless we're strictly speaking about the fact that I choose to do something is a fact in and of itself. But if we're talking about the coherence theory of truth, then what I would say is that if something is true in respect to which it comports to my axioms, someone can structure a moral axiom and say, well, it's true with respect to it comporting with my moral axioms. So where was the fail in the video?
Every single time you say the word moral,
how is that a fail?
Based on all of litigious society and what lawyers ultimately use, if they're being a logically consistent lawyer.
So we're having a philosophical conversation. We were not having a conversation on case law. So when we were having a philosophical conversation, we were working among the definition of morality based on the.
Which one do you think would actually change more people's lives and more what would make?
We were not talking about what will change people's lives. We were having a conversation.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm talking about what will change people's lives.
Logical fallacy, non sequitur. Logical fallacy, non sequitur.
No, it's not a non sequitur at all.
Yep. No. It has nothing to do with the relevance of discussion.
No, dude, we just didn't have our definitions straight.
We were having a philosophical conversation. Yeah. We use definitions that are established in philosophy, not definitions that are maybe established in case law, because we were not having a law conversation. We're not discussing case law. We were discussing philosophy. Therefore, when we use the word morality, we were using the established definition of morality. This is from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy descriptively to refer to certain codes of conduct or put forward by a society or group or accepted by an individual for their own behavior.
You're using the wrong definition. I actually just realized this.
Okay, Google so here's the definition of morality.
Google morals, not morality. Moral.
Okay. Morals.
Yeah.
Normative. Okay. Google from the Stanford Encyclopedia. Moral. Moral is the thing. Moral. Concerned with the principles of right and wrong behavior, and the goodness or badness of human character.
Moral reasoning is just is individual or collective practical reasoning.
Where is this? Where? I'm not seeing it.
It's right here. I'll just read it to you. Right now.
No, I understand you have a.
Hold on, it's just so that people can
reasoning. No, you told me to look up moral, not moral reasoning.
Yeah, moral reasoning, whatever. Stanford.
No. Don't be a sophist about this.
What do you mean? I'm not being a sophist about any of this stuff, dude. I've been a sophist this whole time. I'm not.
You told me to look up the word moral. Now you're giving me moral reasoning. We can go through that, but I'm not seeing where this needs to land is I'm not seeing how we were failing when we were using the word moral.
Every single time you say the word moral, you are utterly failing because ethics is the only argument upon which you build anything else.
Oh my God, you're so dishonest. Look at this. Moral reasoning is individual or collective practical reasoning.
Or collective. I read that to you just now.
So you said you were trying to make a distinction between the individual and something, and something is not individual. Your own definition is telling you the exact opposite of what you've been claiming, even in moral reasoning.
No, Jess, I'm not.
How are we failing?
Find anything like that. I'm just saying.
How are we failing?
This is all the philosophy stuff. So this is like morally one ought to do. So it's obviously ought to do. So it's based on the individual. That's what they're saying, even in the first sentence. Morally one ought to do. I mean, come on.
What one or more than one ought to do? That's what in the definition.
Yeah, no, there's ises that you can then have oughts about, and the ises are ethics. And they have to come first before the individual can have thoughts about them.
The morals is what one ought to do. So how are we failing?
Yeah,
we were talking about the meta-ethical principle, the meta-ethical foundings about what we ought to do.
You don't think that there's ises?
I think there's ises, and yeah, absolutely, I think so.
And the ises are the.
I accept it based on its comportion with my axiom. I accept that there are ises to the extent that my axiom is true.
Why are we using the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy next to what law should be? I mean, you guys.
Because we're having a philosophical conversation, and because we're having a philosophical conversation, we're going to use the definitions that comport with the.
Brutally wrong on that subject, and now you're going to use
we're going to use the definitions that comport with philosophy.
Okay, great. So yeah, we can use the definitions that comport with philosophy. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy is wrong.
Yep. It's wrong. So okay, well how are you saying that it is wrong? This is established.
One ought to do. It's so you think that you ought to do something based on an is though? Okay, so the is.
No, that's not. Where does it say that in the Stanford Encyclopedia?
In the first sentence, it says, "Look,
moral reasoning it's describing what it is. It's individual or collective practical reasoning."
Hold on, listen, settle down.
Which relates about what morally we ought to do. That's what it is. It's not saying we're deriving it as from.
I want to show that viewers can see what the point is.
Not what it says.
You're going to have to stop talking for a minute so that I could show the viewers what we're actually reading. It
does not derive.
You're going to have to stop talking for just a minute. Can you do that? I know that's hard.
Explain to me how an is being derived from an ought.
Okay, great. All right. So moral reasoning is individual or collective practical reasoning about what morally one ought to do.
Okay. So where's the is coming? So where is an is being derived from an ought? I mean, where's an ought being derived from an is?
Okay, so you can't have thoughts about information that you don't have, all right? So you have to be able to have ises to have oughts about those ises. So this is stupid. The first sentence is stupid as fuck.
Why is it stupid?
Based on what I just said. Based on what I just said, were you not listening?
You can't have oughts without ises. What does that have to do with relate to the stupidity or intelligibility of the sentence?
The sentence is stupid. Look.
Why is the sentence stupid?
It says that what you ought to do. Look, moral reasoning is individual or collective practical reasoning about what morally one ought to do. All right, so it's not built on is? You don't think
it could be, or it doesn't say whether it is or isn't. It doesn't say whether. It doesn't make a claim on the matter.
Yeah, it doesn't make any claim at all. That's why it's stupid.
Yeah, so what? It's just to find out everything has to make a claim on the founding of it? No, it's just a definition of what the word means.
Oh, yes, it does. If the claim exists based on empirical evidence,
it can tell you the nature of what it is by definition, and it doesn't have to say
the claim exists.
It does not have to say where it comes from. No, it does not have to say where it comes from. No, not at all.
If the claim exists based on empirical evidence.
If the claim, it doesn't have to say, look, the definition of a claim, whether it's a stupid or intelligible definition, doesn't depend on if there's evidence for that claim. You understand? The definition of something is just the definition of something. Okay. It's just so basic.
So it's a stupid definition because it doesn't.
You're just saying it's a stupid. This is what it's accepted to be. There are certain definitions that are accepted to be just certain definitions. Okay, it doesn't. The relator of something, how is the true value of whether a claim is true or false doesn't depend on the definition of something. All
right, good job, autist. Good job.
The definition is just the definition.
Definition's so important.
So again, how
reality is this definition isn't even defined. And we're discussing
it absolutely is defined.
We're discussing something.
It's defined. Would you like me to define it for you?
Isn't defined.
Moral reasoning is individual or collective practical reasoning about what
I'm trying to show why it's not defined the same.
So how is that not defined?
Is. There's is that build oughts. If you
moral reasoning
don't think that is build oughts,
collective or practical.
Don't think that is build oughts. Then you think that you can have thoughts about
what to do.
All right.
Okay. So how is that related to how it's a stupid definition?
Because you can't have thoughts about information that you don't have.
Therefore,
you need a piece of information to have that freaking thought.
Therefore,
so it's a stupid
what does that have to do with the definition that relates to itself? Just because working within the relator and operator necessitates certain ises does not mean the definition of it is itself is stupid.
What people use as law is that morals are individuals that come down to personal compasses, okay? And ultimately built on your personal compass, your personal choice. That's in law. In all of litigious society, there's over 1 million practicing lawyers in the United States that all
we were not having a discussion about case law.
Jackass,
we were not having a discussion about case law. We were having a discussion about philosophy. Can you tell me?
Ultimately a really dumb.
We were having a discussion about philosophy, not about case law. So can you tell me what all the fails were? We were in that video. We were discussing in that video. We were discussing philosophy. We were using philosophical definitions. We were using definitions established within philosophy. You're trying to say we should have used case law. So can you tell me what the fail? Can you tell me what all the fails were in that video?
Is that I'm making some sort of fail?
Tell me what all the fails were in that video.
Pay attention.
It is a fail.
I'll read it again and explain it to you again. Okay. Moral reasoning is individual or collective practical reasoning about what morally one ought to do. Okay.
Yep.
To do. Based on what? Okay. Can you have thoughts about information that you don't have? Or is it just a collective practical reasoning? This is even more stupid. So this is an appeal to popularity. No, listen, this is an appeal to popularity. So collective practical reasoning is an appeal to popularity. So based on what? It's based on nothing.
It doesn't say if one ought to do something or not based on.
It's silly as fuck. It's silly as fuck. You can't have thoughts about information that you don't have. You have to have the fact that pain is bad to build the fucking arguments for veganism, for anything that you build it on, dumbass.
Okay.
And you're saying, no, I can have thoughts about information that I don't have. Yes. My name's Dr. Avi. Ooh, yes. No, wait, hold on.
Okay.
I can't have thoughts about information that I don't have. And that's because you have to have an is first in order to have the ought about the is, dumbass.
Okay,
and so they're dumbasses too. So you're citing a bunch of dumbasses.
So the definition of it doesn't claim the definition doesn't actually claim about what
see, look at I can smiley smile. Look over here at my smiley smile. Look at my distract. Oh yes, it's so relevant to the topic. Wait, no, it's not, dickhead. You can't have an is without, you can't have a fucking ought without an is to have the ought about. So what the fuck are you talking about?
Okay, so basically the ought is nothing in the definition is being claimed that the ought need to, or what the is that the ought is derived from. It's just saying what the ought.
Yes, it is, dumbass.
No, it's not. So where
is reasoning is individual or collective practical reasoning about what morally one ought to do.
Yeah, what morally one ought to do. That's just the definition of what morally one ought to do.
Based on what?
So it's saying moral reasoning is reasoning about what moral reasoning
came up with it on their own, or do you think
moral reasoning is reasoning about one ought to do?
Reasoning. Do you think that practical reasoning by itself, just collective practical reasoning, makes something true?
What?
Do you think that this word? Do you think that this collective practical reasoning makes something true?
No, it's not claiming to be true. Do you understand? It's just what it is.
It's not claiming to be true. Exactly. And I am claiming that
a definition doesn't claim something to be true. Do you understand that?
Coming into existence. Remember, Avi? There's no pain inside the bottle. Why is there no pain? You had a really hard time with this one, remember? Why is there no pain inside the bottle? You thought there was negativity in the fucking bottle initially, dumbass. There's no fucking negativity inside the bottle. There's no negativity in the bottle because it comes when negativity happens when it comes into existence in the first place. Okay, what pain doesn't have to happen in the first place when there's no reason for that pain to happen, Avi. Right? Okay.
So if something.
Look, I have to shout because you won't even mute your stupid ass and define the fucking things that I'm saying. You won't even let me define the fucking things that I'm saying.
So if something is
heavily already, you've been bitch slapped in this fucking debate.
So if something is defined, it doesn't. The definition of something that is just being defined doesn't make a claim if it exists or not, or if it exists independent of things or not. That's not making a statement. Do you understand the difference? Okay, so do you understand the difference between something that is defined and something that is claimed to be true by the nature of what the is's are?
You are not using an is to establish the ought. You are using an ought to just establish the is, which is silly.
It's doing neither of those things. It's just saying what is something defined to be? An is from an is. It's not defining from an is from an ought or an ought from an is. It's just saying this is this. Moral reasoning is reasoning about what things, what beings, individuals ought to do. It's just an is from an is. It's just defining. It's a self-definition thing. It's not saying that this is the definition that's proven because of what the oughts are and the is are. It's just saying this is this.
Listen. So why would you start out with name the trait with? We have to assume that humans have moral value when we don't. We know.
Where was this statement? We have to assume humans have moral value in the video that we made. Where is the statement? Where can you give me a timestamp?
Shut the fuck up, dude.
Can you give me a timestamp in the video?
All you do is talk over me.
Can you
shut up? Shut the fuck up. You're dumb as fuck. Get corrected. All right. You didn't even know why the fucking bottle was fucking not negative. You thought there was pain and negativity inside of this bottle. There's absolutely
logical fallacies from that argument.
You're a complete philosophical dupe and a dumb
argument.
Okay, and so is ask yourself, dumbass. So you're all dumbasses. Every one of you is a dumbass. You think you can have thoughts about information that you don't have. And that's why you say the word moral over and over and over again. And even this stupid fucking Stanford Encyclopedia philosophy definition is fucking stupid ass rubbish. It's not built on an is, it's built on an ought. What the fuck is that shit?
It's a defined term.
To build an ought. And unless you think you can have thoughts about information that you don't have, which is ultimately what you're pretentious.
Okay, I'm going to turn my microphone up now because I have a better microphone than you.
Pretentious fucking.
So eventually, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I'm going to ask you where in our video did we say we have to assume human moral value in the video that you were making a response to. That's question number 1.
That's the basis of ask yourself's whole fucking argument.
No, that's not the question I asked you. So the question I asked you wasn't his name
the trait.
The question I asked you.
You pretentious little fucking prick.
The question I asked you was where in the video that we made. I know I have a better mic than you. It's not going to work. I'm turning the gain all the way up on my Blue Yeti. I got that basic streamer mic.
Get fucking corrected. Get fucking corrected. Get fucked and corrected.
I'm not discussing about the aspirational videos that previously. I was discussing about the moral video, the meta-ethical video that we made.
You're fucking wrong.
Okay? So where, give me a timestamp in that video.
And all you can do is get autistic as fuck about
and then the other thing I wanted to mention was that definitions in the Stanford.
That's the appeal to fucking definitions, dumb fuck. You think that somebody can fucking just appeal to definitions all fucking day long?
And there's a difference between
because you're a stupid fucking asshole and you've never learned a single fucking thing about how to make it.
That's just by definition to be
a fucking dumb fuck, another slave to a fucking stupid ass machine. You're a slave to a stupid fucking machine.
Okay,
that's what you fucking are. You're
do you understand those two differences?
Stupid fucking machine.
Do you understand the difference between it's something that is defined?
He can have thoughts about information that he doesn't even fucking have. You're another pretentious, useless fucking drug salesman, dumb fuck. Get fucked, idiot. You are a dumbass selling fucking drugs for a fucking pharmaceutical company, along with every other fucking useless, philosophically devoid, dumbass, appeal to fucking definitions, autist, stupid ass slave to a fucking industry that doesn't help anybody in the long run. Okay, it might help you in terms of like it might make certain things less bad with drugs, okay, but ultimately it doesn't make anything less bad when compared to not coming into existence in the fucking first place. Okay, so what I am saying is articulate. It's perfectly fucking rational to say that there's no pain happening in this bottle right now. So why, Avi, do you think that pain needs to happen? It's because you're a sadistic, megalomaniacal fucking moron. You're another dumbass on this fucking planet that wants to fucking, just assert their pretentious stupidity on everybody else. Fuck you and your stupid fucking definitions. Yeah, get slapped across the fucking face.
I love you, buddy. I love you, buddy, my dude. I love you.
Listen. Fuck you. All right.
I love you, buddy, my dude.
And fucking this shit is over. All right.
All right. Take care. I love you.
Yeah. Keep watching like you fucking do. I'm not gonna watch you, dumbass. I can't learn anything from you.
I love you, buddy.
What the fuck are you talking about? I didn't learn a single fucking thing from you. I defined all this shit already on my channel hundreds of times before you even had a fucking thought about what to fucking make.
Okay. I love you.
Yeah.
I love you.
I've defined all this shit multiple times.
Okay, buddy, my dude. Okay.
A lot.
Okay.
You think so? In review, everybody. So Mr. Avi thinks that he can, just have thoughts about information that he doesn't have.
That's not what it was defined to be.
Yeah,
no, that's not what it was defined.
You think you can have an ought without an is?
That's not what the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy defined it to be.
Oh, here we go.
That's not what the Stanford Encyclopedia definition necessitated. That's not what the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy's definition necessitated. It did not make a claim one way or the other. It just defined one thing to be another.
Is he getting fucked up? Yeah. You're getting fucked up, dude.
Okay, buddy.
Done. She's even smarter than you. Way smarter. And she corrects me a lot of the times, too. She's way smarter than you.
Okay.
And we fuck. I would never fuck you. You're afraid, and I know you probably like that sort of thing. All right, but I don't want any of that. I don't want anything to do with that shit. All right, you and Ask Yourself can be butt friends all day.
Well, I just want you to have the least bad day that you can possibly have.
Yeah, exactly. That's what my articulations do.
I just want you to have the least bad day and have the least bad month and have the least bad year.
That's what my arguments do.
And have the least bad lifetime.
That's what my arguments do. They make you have the least bad days you possibly can. If you don't come into existence in the first place, you never fucking have any problems.
Yep. All right.
So why the fuck would you bring people into existence in order to make all the problems? Right. To satisfy Avi's megalomania. Yes, his sadistic vicariousness. Oh, yes, he wants that sadistic vicariousness to be a part of everything else, and he wants to bring that pain into existence for no fucking reason.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Fuck you.
Are you good?
And fuck you, by the way, too, for doing that. For doing that. For being such a pretentious, fuck you for being you. Fuck you.
All right. So I guess I'm gonna go and have the least bad day that I can have.
Yeah, don't fucking reproduce, or else you'll create a preposterous
Thank you for having me on and having this discussion. And I'm going to go on, and this definitely decreased the amount of bad day that I was having this conversation. So thank you for that.
Good. I'm glad. Well, it will, and not only that, but it'll actually make infinity vegans. If you don't reproduce, it makes infinity vegans. And if you reproduce, guess what happens, Avi? There's a chance for them to not be vegans.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is that true? Is that a fact?
Yep.
Okay, good. And you learned that from who? Me. So shut the fuck up.
Thank you for imparting your knowledge.
Yes, I'm doing the right fucking thing too.
And I can't wait to. I actually come from a large family, one of 8. I'm one of 8 siblings, and I can't wait to start a family like that on my own, and how beautiful it would be.
Yeah, preposterous amount of harm that you'll create.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't wait to create all the future.
I can't wait to create beings, buddy, my dude. I'm gonna create them. For every being that you don't create, I'm gonna create.
Pretentious and vicarious as you? That's a good question. Are they going to be as pretentious and vicarious as you? Is that what you want?
I guess we'll just find out. But I hope they're going to have as very minimal bad days as they can have as well.
Yeah, well, they won't, because they'll be existing, and therefore they'll die eventually. So you'll create some people who will die.
Yep. I'm gonna create. I'm gonna create some babies. That's what I'm gonna do.
You're fine with killing your future children.
I'm fine with creating my future children. Yep.
So that they can die.
Not so that they can die, so they can experience well-being.
Well, they will die, right?
So they can experience well-being.
They will die, won't they?
Yeah, they will. But they can experience.
Great job. Okay, so good. So what exactly is the thing that you think that they will be achieving while they come into existence? Will they be getting rid of cancer?
They'll be experiencing. They will be experiencing.
They will be progeny cure cancer, Avi. Would that be a net good?
They will be experiencing well-being, buddy, my dude.
Well-being. So well-being.
Yep.
So let's define well-being really quick. All right.
Well-being is not the opposite of suffering, or not the lack of suffering. If you want to try to redefine well-being into the lack of suffering, then one can say the opposite around and say that suffering is the absence of
people. Google the definitions, dumbass. This is about people, not you, you pretentious fucking prick. Yep. Shut the fuck up.
I know. I already know the antinatalist definition of
well-being. When you Google well-being, this is the definition. Okay, the state of being comfortable, healthy, or
healthy.
Right? Yeah, great job. All right, so good job. All right,
I am comfortable, happy, and healthy right now.
How are they going to be purely comfortable? Where is the instance where they're going to be purely comfortable?
I am comfortable, happy, and healthy.
Are you purely comfortable, healthy, and happy?
I am comfortable, happy, and healthy. My net overall comfortability, happiness, and healthfulness is a net positive, and that's what I care about, buddy, my dude. I am happy.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not your buddy or your dude. All right. So,
you're my dude, my buddy. What do you mean you're not my buddy, my dude?
Settle down.
How you're not my buddy, my dude? I thought we were getting along.
On my channel. I don't want you having hot sex with ask yourself on my fucking channel.
Hold on.
Disgusting.
Wait, I thought we were having a good time.
Well, listen, if you want to do that stuff, it's fine. It's just I don't want that to be a part of this argument. Okay?
Wait.
All right,
wait,
so
buddy, my dude.
Being comfortable, healthy, or happy. All right.
Yeah.
So you really think that you could be purely happy? You think that there's a pure happiness?
No, I think there's degrees. I don't think I can be purely tortured either.
Exactly. Okay. And there's no pure. There's no pure happy, is there?
There's no pure torture, is there?
Yes, there fucking is. There is a pure torture.
So the max. Can you show me the maximal state of torture?
You suffer. It means you can die.
Can you show me one brain?
You can be the victim of fucking.
Show me one brain that has the maximal state of torture in which all the nociceptors are firing, and which all of the integration in the neocortex is interpreting it as torture, in which all the nociceptors, alpha nociceptors, C-type nociceptors are firing simultaneously. Can you show me one being who's currently experiencing every single nociceptor firing simultaneously? Can you show me that being?
What the fuck are you talking? Do
you understand what a nociceptor is?
Yes, it's a pain.
What's a nociceptor? Okay, and do you understand the difference between alpha type and C-type nociceptors?
Yes.
What is the difference between an alpha nociceptor and a type C nociceptor?
They think that one creates pleasure in the brain.
No, neither of them create pleasure.
Yes, they do. Shut up, dude. You don't know what the fuck.
So the difference between an alpha type nociceptor and a type C
nociceptor. And you use definitions and appeal to definitions
this has a strict definition.
Try to establish an argument as opposed to fucking using philosophy.
The difference between
philosophy, dumbass.
The difference between
use philosophy. You want to get
between a type A nociceptor.
Use philosophy then. Don't use
there's a difference between a type A nociceptor and a type C.
Don't use appeal to definition.
One does not generate. Neither of them actually generate pleasure.
You're trying to look fucking smarter than somebody else because you're a pretentious fucking
Well,
prick.
you can just if you want to tell me
less of the bad. I'm trying to make less of the fucking bad. And you're over here just trying to look like a smart. I'm so smart. Look at me. I could redefine something when he knows what it is already. When he defines what air theory is, it's ethical fucking nihilism. And when he shows why it is, and when he makes the arguments, when he tries to show the arguments that are on the very thing that he says, no, you don't know what that is. Oh my God, no. Oh my God, I'm so smart. I'm so fucking smart. Look at how pretentious I am. Oh yes, I'm so fucking smart when I know some definition. Shut the fuck up, you dumbass.
All I'm saying is that
you're a useless sack of fucking shit. You're another sentient fucking slime on this fucking planet. That's what you fucking are. You're a sentient slime on this planet. You're the worst kind of fucking slime that exists. You feel pain.
Okay, so if you understand the definition, then you should be able to give me the definition.
What the fuck are you laughing at, dumbass? You're getting fucking backhanded. Shut up.
So if you understand the definition, you told me that you understand.
You're laughing at causing unnecessary pain. That's so funny. Yeah, causing unnecessary pain is so funny.
I asked you to give me show me a being who experienced
funny about that.
All of their nociceptors firing and integrating within their brain. I asked you for both the type A nociceptors and the type C nociceptors. Can you tell me the difference? I asked you to tell me the difference between what those two are. If you did know, you answered, yes, I do know what they were. I asked you what they were. You said one generates pleasure, and that's already wrong. Because neither say that. I said one generates,
responsible for generating pleasure.
No, that's not true. Neither are thought to be responsible for generating pleasure.
Okay, all right. Well,
okay, so would you like me to tell you what they mean?
Pleasures, seriously, you think that the pleasures justify the harms?
Do you want me to explain to you what the difference means?
Fuck off with that fucking bullshit. Do you think that the pleasures justify the harms? Do you think that the pleasures justify the harms? It's a very simple question.
Okay.
Yes or no?
My answer is
do you think that the pleasures justify the harms?
Absolutely, buddy, my dude.
Okay, so you think that fucking an orgasm justifies killing somebody?
I think the overall net well-being in all aspects.
Shut the fuck up. Do you think that a fucking orgasm justifies killing somebody?
One orgasm? No,
yes.
But again, I don't think one prick.
Did you do it then and make a fucking human?
I don't think one.
Absurd. Need does not need to exist when you don't come into existence in the first place. It's simple. Requirements aren't required. None of the requirements to avoid pain.
Do you understand how you are picking out?
Fucking thing you do here on planet Earth.
Do you understand?
You relieve yourself of fucking genetic material, and you think that that's this great fucking pleasurable thing.
Do you understand how you picking out one specific part of well-being and saying it's justified all of the suffering that one would experience is just as dishonest as if I were to pick out one specific part of suffering and ask if that is not justified by all the well-being someone would experience? So let's say someone feels uncomfortable one day. I would say, do you think someone feeling uncomfortable with it one day would be so bad that it would not compare to that it would not trounce all the well-being someone experienced? You see how dishonest that is? Obviously, we have to compare the net well-being of someone's entire life to their net suffering in their entire life.
Okay, but do you so you'd have to think that there could be a pure happy,
No, we don't.
Yes, you fucking would.
No,
if you want to accumulate those things, you'd have to say that. And then you just said that you thought that
I don't think I need to be a pure state of happiness, just like I don't think there needs to be a pure state of torture, and there isn't, by the way. Can you show me a pure state of torture?
I'm saying that you would have to establish a pure happy.
Why would I have to do that?
In order to say that you wanted to fucking bring a person into existence to achieve.
No, I wouldn't have to say that there's a pure.
If it doesn't have an end goal, if there's no end goal, so you think that the end goal is well-being, but there's no end goal. There's no pure happiness. It's just you experience happiness. Yeah, well, jackass, that doesn't fucking justify all the pain. That doesn't justify all the debt. That doesn't justify all the misery. That doesn't justify one Jeffrey Dahmer or one child dying of fucking cancer. It doesn't justify a single fucking thing that happens to you based on what you're saying right now. Okay.
If you compare all the well-being experienced by an individual compared to all the suffering experienced by an individual, overall, I would say absolutely it's justified. I'm very happy my parents brought me into existence, and I'm glad, and I think it was justified for them to bring me into existence in light of all the well-being that I'm experiencing compared to all the suffering I'm experiencing as a net. Compare the two together, and I absolutely think it is ethically justified.
Good job. Great job. Okay.
Now,
great. Listen. Now, okay. So
can you show me the pure state of torture that you were talking about?
You've talked. Now I'll talk. That's how debates work, dumbass. All right. That's how debates work. Okay. You talk. I talk. Okay.
Okay. Can you show me the pure state of torture?
I mean, are we clear about that? I mean, because I'm going to end this live stream if you don't shut the fuck up. All right. So settle down.
A question.
No, dude. What was your question?
My question is, can you show me a being who is experiencing a pure maximal state of torture?
Absolutely.
Which being?
People that are being starving to death right now.
Are they experiencing a pure maximal state of torture that their brain could possibly experience?
Yeah, pretty much. Starving to death.
So every single one of their nociceptors are firing.
All of that while you're existing right now.
Are every one of their nociceptors firing?
No, it's not. All of their nociceptors firing doesn't mean shit, dumbass.
Well, it does, because if there is a certain amount of additional pain that they could experience, and they're not experiencing,
why do you think need needs to?
Then what happens is that they're not actually experiencing a maximal state of torture or suffering.
Why do you think?
By definition.
No. All right. Okay.
So can you show me a being who is experiencing a maximal state of torture or suffering?
How much pain they're feeling is totally fucking irrelevant based on the fact that there's no pain whatsoever inside of this bottle here, okay? There's no pain whatsoever on Mars, and that's because it never came into existence in the first place on Mars, okay? And it's not in this bottle right here. So you would have to say that something extremely negative was happening in this bottle right now in order to say that there was some sort of negativity involved in.
If I was as dishonest, in my redefinitions as you are,
whatsoever with not coming into the first place.
If I was as dishonest, if I was as dishonest in my definitions as you are, I would define well-being as just the absence of suffering, and just say that the fact that there is no well-being there.
Beside the point. That's about
that's a dishonest. I'm showing you how your definition is the dishonest.
You are saying I'm not being
as a natalist definition.
Dumb fucking little prick. Shut the fuck up and get fucked again, okay? You are fucking up.
Again, if I was as dishonest as you are in your redefinitions, if I was dishonest,
death is justified by an orgasm.
I was as dishonest as you are in the antinatalist definition, I could come at you from a natalist definition and say the suffering is just.
This is negative utilitarianism that we're discussing.
The absence of suffering is just as dishonest as a definition as saying suffering as just the absence of well-being.
This dumbass is really not working very well.
Listen, that's the same. That's
you need to get muted and shut the fuck up and listen to what I'm fucking saying right now.
Are you experiencing a maximal state of torture right now?
Yes, everyone fucking is by existing.
Are all of your nociceptors firing right now? Your type A and type C nociceptors? So is there a more maximal state of torture that you could possibly experience right now?
Existence in the first place. Coming into existence in the first place means that you now feel pain, okay? And you don't feel pain at all.
Feeling pain, the maximal state of torture.
No pain. Listen, you feel no pain at all if you never come into existence. If you are in this bottle right now, there's nothing in this bottle, okay? So there's nothing in the bottle, and that's because there's no pain, there's no negativity in the bottle, okay?
Is feeling pain the maximal state of torture and suffering? Is feeling pain the maximal state of torture and suffering?
Yes.
So is it possible to feel more pain than you are right now?
Yes, of course.
And how is the amount of pain you're feeling right now the maximal state of torture and suffering?
Because when compared to not coming into existence, dumbass, I've explained to you multiple times that there's no negativity.
Is there a greater amount of pain that you could experience right now? Shut up for a second,
dude. I have to explain it again.
Is there a greater amount of pain that you could be experiencing right now?
You are defending a fucking position that is the absolute fucking taken for granted norm amongst all the dumbasses here on fucking planet Earth.
Is there a greater amount of pain that you could experience
and actually creates less of the suffering? It actually creates less of the suffering.
Are you in a maximal state of suffering right now? Are you in a maximal state of suffering right now?
That's infinity vegans. Infinity vegans.
Are you experiencing a maximal state of suffering right now?
listen to me. You're a vegan. You just had the thing.
Are you experiencing a maximal state of suffering right now?
Everyone is that's watching this video.
Is there a possible greater amount of suffering that you could experience?
Right now,
is there a possible greater amount of suffering that you could experience?
Okay, listen.
There's possible greater amount of suffering that you could experience
once you exist already.
Is there a possible maximal amount of suffering that you could experience? Is there a possible maximal amount of suffering that you can experience? Yes or no?
When compared to,
is there a possible maximal amount of suffering that is greater than the suffering that you are making right now that you can experience? Yes or no? Is there a greater amount of suffering that you can experience right now? Yes or no?
Yes, obviously.
Okay, then how is it possible that you are experiencing a maximal state of suffering right now? By definition, it's a mathematical impossibility if there is a greater possible state of suffering that you can experience. By definition, you are not experiencing a maximal state of suffering right now. Do you understand? So are you willing to concede that that was a false statement, that you are experiencing a maximal state of suffering right now? Are you willing to concede that there?
What I said was, when you don't come into existence in the first place, you deceitful little weasel, you don't experience any of the harm.
Yeah, that would be a minimal state, right? You said that you were experiencing a maximal state.
Zero state. There's no pain at all.
Yeah, that's a minimal state of pain, which would be no pain.
No, there's no pain at all. So
do you understand what the word? Do you understand what the word minimal?
Existence. So what you're saying is a fucking fallacious argument. It's a fucking straw man. You're making a straw man.
Do you understand what the most possible minimal statement would be?
They're different arguments.
Do you understand what the most possible
completely different arguments? I'm discussing
would be?
whether or not coming into existence is a serious harm or not.
If you are experiencing
about whether or not you already exist.
Do you understand? Do you understand that there is a spectrum you're talking about?
You understand that
you're at the point. If you're what you're referring to now is at the point zero.
Do you understand that existing is different
a certain amount of suffering right now? It is possible for you to experience more suffering right now. Therefore, you are not experiencing the maximal state of suffering right now.
Right now, because I'm existing.
Yeah, right now. Therefore, you are not experiencing the maximal possible state of suffering because it is possible for you to experience. It is possible for you to experience a greater amount of suffering.
Wow.
Do you under? So therefore, it is a false claim. Therefore, it is fallacious.
Multiple times.
Therefore, it is false.
You're making a straw man. You're combining antinatalism and negative utilitarianism.
I'm asking you a question. Are you experiencing the maximal state of suffering right now?
I answered this question multiple times.
What's the answer?
When compared to not coming into existence in the first place.
Okay. So when compared to not coming into existence in the first place, is it possible for you to experience a greater state of suffering than you are experiencing right now? So when compared to zero, let's say you're experiencing, let's say your value of suffering is 100. Compared to zero, is it possible for you to experience 150? Is it possible for you to experience 200? Is it possible for you to experience more? Compared to non-existence, is it possible for you to experience more suffering than you are right now? Is it possible?
You don't experience any of the pain when you don't come into existence in the first place.
Yeah. So is it possible for you to experience more suffering right now compared to zero? So right now you're experiencing a lot of suffering compared to zero. Is it possible for you to experience more suffering compared to zero?
No. Listen, okay? You're just being a little sophist, weasel.
Really? Saying we're using the definitions of words more or less, using them properly, saying that you're not experiencing the maximal state of suffering because there's more suffering you can experience? That's weaseling and suffering?
When you don't come into existence in the first place, it's just Mars. There's no.
Do you understand you would experience more suffering if someone tortured you and burned your eyeballs out right now than what?
What, this guy is fucking insane.
Degree of suffering if someone were to come to you right now and start torturing you?
I'm gonna end this really quick, and I'm gonna wrap this up in a minute here. It sucks because I can't mute him, and I can't wrap it up really fast. So otherwise I would just mute you, but you unmute yourself every single time and talk over me. So, okay.
Yeah. So is it possible for you to experience a greater state of suffering than what you're experiencing right now?
It depends on the person.
Yeah.
Their tolerance.
Yeah.
Some people can,
some people can, some people can't, but that's not the argument ultimately. Okay. Yeah. He's not even making the argument, is he? I mean, he's not making the argument for our position, is he?
No.
No. Exactly. Say that louder so they can hear you.
No,
I mean, obviously. Yeah, I mean, she's.
Hey, how you doing?
She's really shy, but ultimately, now that my dog.
Hey, you got a dog? Hey, let me say hi to your dog. What's your dog's name?
My dogs don't like you either.
Wait, what's your dog's name? Wait, wait. I want to make sure. Your dog.
So just chill out for a second.
Bad day possible.
You are making a straw man argument right now, okay? And the reason for that is because you're talking about already existing, and we're talking about not existing in the first place.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So compared to not existing, is it possible for you to experiencing more suffering than what you're experiencing right now?
Why would you do that
because you said you are currently experiencing the maximal state of suffering. That was what you said.
Dumbass. Listen, you're making a
compared to not existing. You said compared to not,
it's a straw man because
compared to not existing, you are experiencing the maximal state of suffering compared to not existing. Is that what you're saying?
Do you think that? Let me just ask you this. So I've answered all your questions multiple times.
You have not.
Yes, I have.
You have not.
I fully answered your questions, and this will be recorded.
You have not, sir.
No, I have completely answered your questions.
Buddy, my dude, you have not.
Do you think, now you have to answer my question, all right? You have to answer this question.
Yep.
All right. So do you think that not existing in the first place, so not being born, is the same as existing already?
No, those are not the same.
Why would you ask the question? So
because
you just said
one entails less.
No. So why would you ask the question, what could be the maximum amount of pain that I could experience when it's a null factor when you don't come into existence in the first place, and therefore there's no pain to begin with?
Yeah, so it's completely comparable. Yeah,
so you just said no.
Here's how I would answer.
You just said no. They're not the same thing.
Yeah, of course they're not the same thing. Of course they're not. But the question is completely intelligible.
So why then would you make a straw man and ask about what we're doing while we're already here?
Of course they're not the same thing.
Okay, so why would you ask about what we're doing?
The reason I would ask, regardless, even if they're not the same thing, is because one involves zero suffering. Hey, what's up, buddy, my dude? What kind of dog you got?
Everything. Good dogs. Yeah.
Is it a lab? What kind of dog?
They're two beagles and a
beagles. I love dogs. Are you a dog antinatalist? Wait, are you a dog antinatalist?
With that, okay. You just started becoming vegan a couple days ago or something like that.
So the reason I would ask, so not existing would be zero suffering. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes.
And within the spectrum of existing, there are different degrees of suffering that someone can experience. Would you agree with that statement?
Once you're in existence already.
Once you're in existence, so compared to zero, there is a certain degree of suffering you can experience that's greater than zero.
No, but once you exist already, all you do is experience.
All you do is experience the maximum amount of suffering.
Yes, compared to not existing at all.
There's no greater possible suffering that could
compared to not existing at all in the first place. Yes.
Okay. No. Well, that's not what I asked you. I didn't say compared to. Well, even compared to zero. So compared to zero, if you have a certain amount of suffering, is that the maximal amount of suffering? So let's say compared to zero, you have the number 100.
Dude.
Okay. Is that the maximum number?
What you don't understand
is 100 the maximum number compared to zero?
If we're going to so listen, you can keep trying to derail this, but I'm just going to end
It's not a derail. It's core to the central point.
Doing nothing but trying to derail it, and you're such a dishonest pile of fucking shit. But let's just focus for a second.
I still haven't gotten an answer to the question.
Well-being. All right, this is all
compared to zero. Compared to zero, is there a more maximum amount of suffering that you can experience?
I mean, you're not very fucking.
Is there a greater amount of suffering?
You've never studied this enough, okay?
Mathematically, and based on your neuroanatomy, is there a greater amount of suffering that you can experience right now? Yes or no?
Dude,
if someone were to torture you, would you experience more suffering?
Obviously, you would experience more suffering.
Okay, so therefore, what you are experiencing right now is, by definition, even compared to non-existing, not the maximum amount of suffering by definition.
No, when you don't exist, there's no suffering at all.
Yes, so this has to do with math, and this has to do with your neuroanatomy and math. This is a denial of math at this point.
This only when
you denial of mathematical operators and how they function. Okay,
you're not.
You understand that there are words like less and more. There's zero.
Yeah, you're not exactly a math genius.
And then there's.
Listen,
and then there's certain spectrum, and there's greater and less. So there's these concepts, right? So you have zero, which is non-existing.
Yeah.
You have a certain amount of suffering, and is it possible to have a greater amount of suffering? So even when compared from zero, just because some amount of suffering is there doesn't mean that it's the max amount, because there could be a greater amount.
Okay, so
do you understand this concept?
Do you understand the concept that there is no pain inside of this bottle?
That's not an answer to my question.
Do you understand the fact that there's no pain?
So let's go with zero. So there's zero. Let's say there's zero, there's no pain.
Zero inside of here, okay?
Yeah,
so
that's zero.
There be a maximal amount of pain if there's zero and it's just zero. There's nothing there. You'd have to come into existence in order for there to be a problem.
Yeah. And in that and within that spectrum
of
of existence,
what the fuck are you talking about? You're comparing two
that
things that aren't the
spectrum of
same.
existence, compared to non-existence,
Different
there is a certain
fucking
amount of suffering compared to zero. So the amount of suffering compared to in non-existence, and when someone exists compared to non-existent, they can have a certain finite amount of suffering. If it is possible for them to have a greater amount of, suffering, then it therefore is mathematically and logically the case that the amount of suffering one is experiencing right now is not the greatest maximal possible amount of suffering. So therefore, it is not the statement that you are experiencing the maximum amount of suffering right now is a false statement.
No, you are, when compared to not coming into existence in the first place.
Yes, so compared to not coming to existence in the first place, which represents the suffering value of zero, there is a spectrum within the amount of suffering that someone can experience in existence, which can be a finite amount, and it is possible for there to be a greater amount. Therefore, the statement that you are
shaking your head
experiencing the greatest possible amount of suffering right now is a false statement.
No, it's not false. Listen,
it is a mathematically false statement.
Listen, if you don't come into existence in the first place, it's completely different than already existing. So if you don't come into existence in the first place, there's obviously no chance to have a maximal or a minimal possibility of pain.
Well, when we talk, so the value is zero. The value of suffering is zero for a being that does not exist.
Yes. So how do you compare a maximal amount of something compared to something that has a value of zero and it's infinitely zero?
Infinitely zero.
Yes. If I don't make one,
can you explain to me what infinitely zero means?
Okay, if I don't make a progeny, all right, they're infinitely a vegan because they're never going to.
What does infinitely zero mean?
Okay, I just explained it to you. I'll explain it again.
Do you mean the value being zero throughout all of time?
If I don't make a progeny, they're infinitely a vegan.
They're infinitely a vegan because they don't make a progeny.
Yes, if I don't make a progeny, that all of my future progeny are vegans.
Okay, so you're saying that you would experience zero, so that the non-existent being would experience zero for an infinite amount of time.
Yes, zero pain. Yeah.
Zero pain for an infinite amount of time.
Yeah, for the rest of time.
Okay, so let's compare that for something that exists. Is there?
Why the fuck would we do that?
As you just said, you just said you are experiencing the maximal amount of suffering.
There being no negativity in this fucking bottle. There's no negativity.
I just told you it was zero.
There's no negativity happening on Mars. That's because there's no sentient life that ever came into existence in those things.
Yeah,
okay.
So let's say there is a sentient
right now.
I mean, look. Let's just say you have two beings that exist.
Look, dude, you're not understanding.
One experience more suffering than the other? Can one compare? Let's say you have let's say you have a non-existent being, a being that exists. So let's say you have you right now, and let's say you have me. How would you rate the amount of suffering that each person is experiencing based on me, you, and the non-existent being?
Dude, shut the fuck up and
can you answer the question
now.
So there's three beings.
Got nothing but be a useless fucking prick.
There's three beings. There's three beings right now.
Talk to me so incessantly. It's so fucking annoying.
There's
and I can't figure out how to mute your stupid ass. So I can ask you questions that you have to fucking respond to. All right?
So there's you, me, and then there's a non-existent being. So if there's you, me, and a non-existent being, how would you order the amount of suffering that each being is experiencing?
We've been debunked and dismantled already. So just that whole point that you made about somehow you being able to experience a
me, and a non-existent being. How would you rate the amount of suffering each of us is experiencing? There's you, me, and a non-existent being. If you had to rate the amount of suffering each being is experiencing right now in order, how would you rate it?
I would rate it fuck you and answer my question now because you're
that's not an answer to my question.
Yeah, no.
That's not an answer.
Listen,
so if there's you, me, and a
same
non-existent
stupid
being,
fucking question
how would you rate
multiple
in
times in a
descending
row,
order
dickhead.
the amount of
You've been
suffering each one
comparing
of us is
not existing
experiencing?
in the first place.
So if
to-
there's you, me, and a non-existent being,
you've
how
been
much
comparing
suffering would you rate
Right?
each
He's
individual?
out. I'm this guy. What do you think I should do, man?
So if there's
Yeah,
you,
she
me,
wants
and
me
a
to go 'cause you're a dumb
non-existent being.
Because you're a dumbass.
All right, I
you
love
are
you,
a
buddy.
dumbass and an asshole. And if you make a person, you create infinite suffering if they create more people. Okay, if the human race eventually ended. Okay, that until that point you would create that suffering. Okay.
Let me just ask you this. Do you honestly think if you nuke the fault lines that you would produce enough carbon dioxide to acidify the ocean?
Well, it's happened naturally already with the Permian extinction. So
No, so do you understand that there are acidophiles that exist? There are acidophilic fish. There are fish that actually would do better. Yeah, they have neurons. There are fish that have neurons that would exist better in an acidic environment.
No, they wouldn't exist in a fucking carbon dioxide acid environment.
Do you understand how much pH that would decrease the ocean by?
Do you understand that it would create an acidic ocean that would eventually make the oceans go away?
There are fish that survive better on pH of 5.
Yeah, and the oceans would go away eventually because
the oceans would go away. No, that's not.
Yes,
that doesn't
eventually
make
they would.
the acidity. This is a fact of chemistry. Okay, so the ocean going away is not entailed by the acidity of the ocean. You do a really good job. All right, you could do a lot better. The ocean going away is not entailed by the acidity of the ocean. So there's a Henderson-Hasselbalch equation that describes how carbon dioxide would acidify the ocean. And even if you were to nuke the fault lines,
useless sophist.
Even if you were to nuke the
do you
fault
think
lines,
veganism would get anywhere, asshole? Do you think veganism would get anywhere, asshole? Do you think veganism would get anywhere?
Even if you were to nuke the fault lines,
do you think veganism
you would not acidify the ocean.
Do you think veganism would get anywhere if you could just have?
Even if you were to nuke the fault lines, you would not acidify the oceans.
Do you think veganism?
Even if you were to nuke the fault lines, you would not.
Do you think veganism would get
Even
anywhere?
if you were to nuke the fault lines, you would not acidify the ocean to a substantial degree to eliminate all of the life with neurons anyway. There's no evidence for that. There's no evidence that there would be enough carbon dioxide reached to calculate into the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation of a weak acid such that the pH of the ocean would end up killing all life with neurons. There's no evidence for that. That is an unsubstantiated claim. Furthermore, there are fish that actually are acidophiles.
Listen. All right, look. All right, you've gotten all autistic on me now. So just listen, okay?
Not autistic. So you're making you claim
so the Permian extinction.
You think the Permian extinction did not wipe out all life? The Permian extinction.
You're talking about random.
Did the Permian extinction eliminate all life? Did the Permian extinction eliminate all life? Did the Permian extinction eliminate all life?
And you're telling me I'm talking over you? Dude, I let you talk and then you talk over me.
Did the Permian extinction eliminate all life? There's no evidence that nuking any part of the ocean will eliminate all life. All life with neurons even.
That's not the argument. Nuking a fault line would cause...
Nuking a fault line would... There's no evidence nuking a fault line would cause enough carbon dioxide.
You're an asshole. Guys, if you can't understand that this person is an asshole, I don't know if you can understand what an asshole actually is, okay? You should try to establish first what a fucking person's motives are, what their goals are. This person's a natalist, all right? They have a biased fucking natalist agenda with absolutely no intent of understanding what
making babies.
Yeah, making babies. Yeah, making death,
babies. Making them babies. That's what we're going to do.
Making death, making loss. Yeah, that's what you do when you make babies.
Do you have any evidence that let me ask you a question.
So that you can serve megalomania and sadistic vicariousness and other types of things that are too sadistic to even be called fucking selfishness.
Let me ask you this. Even with the goal of ending all life, even with that goal, the problem is you would need a way that you can ensure that you are ending all neuronal life. And to nuke the fault lines is not a way to do that. It's not established. It's not established that there would be enough carbon dioxide to actually acidify the ocean, something so vast as the ocean, to a degree that would bring the pH to levels of 3 or 2, which would eliminate all neuron bases.
Can I establish the argument now?
So the natalist argument, even within the antinatalist position, is that in order to actually get to the point where you would eliminate all of life, because if you accomplish this, then all that's going to happen is other beings would take our place in ecological niches and suffer more. So what you would actually have to advocate for is to actually make babies and continue the production of science until you can build a Protoss armada with whatever with antimatter bombs or whatever in order to eliminate life. Because otherwise, all you would accomplish, even if you used all the uranium in the crust of the Earth, all you would accomplish is more suffering.
You are such an asshole. I wish I could permanently mute you, but I can't. I've tried now multiple times. You always unmute yourself. This is so fucking
All
annoying.
if you would accomplish is more suffering.
How do I mute this asshole? Are you done yet?
Do you want to build a Protoss armada?
Are you done yet?
Can you respond to my argument?
Yes.
Okay, so can you explain to me the evidence for nuking the fault line would cause enough carbon dioxide such that the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation would result in a pH of 3 or 2 or something even remotely close with that amount of water to eliminating the sentient life? Can you provide me with that evidence empirically, yes or no?
Yes. Now,
okay, where is it?
Okay, all right. So the Permian extinction happened. It had happened already. Nature did it just by itself.
Did the Permian extinction end all life?
You're just already interrupting.
Did the Permian extinction end all life?
Oh my God, how can you do this?
Permian extinction is irrelevant.
How are you this much of a fucking narcissist?
The Permian extinction did not end all life. Your goal is to end all life. Right now, if the Permian extinction were something you were going for, now, what would happen is you would have your goal already, but you don't because people exist. So you need something better than the Permian extinction. Do you have evidence that you have something better than the Permian extinction?
Okay, the Permian extinction eradicated 96% of all life, and it did it just based on nature. Okay, there was no human being intervening whatsoever. There was no intelligence intervening whatsoever. You don't think that we could eradicate that by emitting enough carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and watching from like space or something while it all went away? Obviously we could. This is just a conclusion of that. Okay, this is just a conclusion of the arguments.
Okay, so just to correct you on the numbers, so the Permian extinction did not eliminate 97% of all life.
I talked for 2 seconds.
So you made a false claim.
I'm defending an argument that is not
the Permian extinction
held by the vast majority of people, and you are just talking over me. You asshole! Shut the fuck up!
The Permian
You're a useless fucking asshole.
Permian extinction.
Shut up!
It's estimated that the Permian extinction wiped out more than 90% only of the marine species and only 70% of the land animals. So there were still 30%.
Somebody please tell me
10%,
how to mute this asshole so that I can
marine life
respond.
remaining.
Please show me.
That is a false claim.
Every time I put mute on, okay, fucking unmutes it. All right, he just talks incessantly and unmutes himself.
What you need to do here is you need to provide evidence that 100%
over and over and over.
100% of neuron-based life would be eliminated. Can you provide me evidence that 100% of neuron-based life would be eliminated by nuking the fault lines? How much carbon dioxide? Again, I want the numbers. The amount of carbon dioxide that would be released, the retention rate of the carbon dioxide in the ocean, the mass of the ocean, and formulate it into the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation such that we would get a pH that would eliminate all neuron-based life, given the fact that there are acidophilic neuron-based life creatures. Can you do that for me?
Look, I already established that it happened already naturally without any human intervention whatsoever, that it eradicated 96% of all life on planet Earth. So
70% of land-based life and about 90% of marine-based life.
No, it eradicated 96% of all life.
No, it did not. Nope.
The Permian extinction
The Permian extinction only eradicated 70% of land animals. It wiped out more than 90% of only the marine species.
Okay. Well, we can figure out other ways to do it. Okay, that's pretty damn close to getting rid of all.
The upper limit, the 96% figure only refers. No, I'm not going to let you make a false statement. The upper limit, 96%, is only of the marine species. It's actually 90 to 96%, and the 96, and that figure is only of the planet's marine species. It's not all life. So the statement that 96% of all life were eliminated is actually a false statement. Only 70% of the land life was eliminated. Only 70% of land animals were eliminated, and 90 to 96% of marine life was eliminated. So you saying 96% of all life was eliminated by the Permian extinction is a false statement. And even if it were a true statement, your goal is to do something greater than that. Your goal is to eliminate 100% of neuron-based life. Can you provide evidence using the amount of numbers of carbon dioxide that would be released, the retention of carbon dioxide, and the rate of how much of it would escape, and using the size of the ocean, the mass of the ocean, can you plug that information into the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation such that you get a pH that would result in something that would eliminate the acidophilic creatures that exist right now? Can you provide evidence for that?
I'm sure we could, because it definitely exists.
Okay, go for it. Provide evidence.
Well, the fact that a nuke can be created in just as big of a quantity as you want.
Okay. Yep. Well, you have a limited amount of uranium in the crust of the Earth.
We could get it from other places.
Do you know how much? Do you know the max? Even if you were to get the maximum amount of uranium, do you understand that even if you were to extract all the uranium from the crust of the Earth, I actually did the numbers on this. Even if you were to use all of the uranium on Earth, which you actually won't be able to end up doing for practical reasons, but even if you were able to do that, if you were to throw that into the largest nuclear bombs that ever existed, you were to put that in the ocean, the best you can hope for is to increase the temperature of the ocean by 2 degrees Celsius. At the bottom, and especially if you're talking about the bottom of the ocean, a nuke only expands to about 1 kilometer just because of the immense pressure. There's a large explosion that only reaches 1 kilometer, and the radiation actually, because of the difference in density, the radioactive water actually raises up. So it's a highly ineffective way of destroying the deep sea life. It's very impractical to do this, even if you were to take all of the uranium from the crust of the Earth. Can you provide evidence that you can do that?
Okay, so you should make a video with all your numbers and everything, and then we could come at all the numbers from a video response, right? So, but you have to listen.
So can you provide the evidence?
Yeah.
Go ahead, do it. How much? So tell me how much carbon dioxide, how many kilograms of carbon dioxide will be released by nuking the fault lines?
Okay, well, there's obviously enough carbon dioxide inside.
How many kilograms?
There's plenty of it, okay?
Plenty is not a kilogram number amount.
By itself, even if it eradicated 70% of all life on land and 90% of all life in the oceans, that would still be more than enough to harness.
No, it wouldn't.
Yes.
It would result in, because here's the problem. Here's why it wouldn't be enough. If you don't get 100% of neuron-based life, you've actually caused more suffering, and here's why. If you don't get 100% extinction of neuron-based life, all that happens is you create free ecological niches. And if you create free ecological niches, what happens is there's an enormous selective pressure to exploit those ecological niches. The only difference is there would be more radiation in those niches. And so the only thing you would do is life that already has neurons would just continue to evolve again, but this time with more suffering. So all you would have done and accomplished is created a world with more suffering.
Yeah, okay, so
that's why you need 100%.
That's if it fails, okay? So if you think that it's going to fail somehow, but the reality is that suffering is happening right now in a preposterous amount.
Yeah, and you would increase suffering. You would increase suffering. If you don't get 100%, you will increase suffering.
He doesn't even let me get a comment in. All right, settle down. All right, so there is a tremendous amount of suffering that is happening right now, and it's been happening for the last 541 million years.
Yep.
Okay. So any reduction in that, if it was another extinction that even reduced,
that wouldn't be a reduction.
50%, it would be a reduction. It would be a heavy reduction, and we could get just the fact that it's possible to eradicate 90% of all the life in the oceans, and
that wouldn't be a reduction in suffering
on the land. Listen, and just the fact that it is possible to do that, okay, would mean via just the natural thing that happened, okay? The stupid ass nature that created that would make it so likely that with intelligence added in, it would be able to stop it completely. So, and I'd also like to add in really quickly that
can you explain how it would not result in more suffering?
We're discussing the conclusion of the argument and without discussing the argument beforehand, okay? So the fact that coming into existence is always a serious harm and not coming into existence is simply not a serious harm is proven by the fact that there's no negativity happening on Mars, okay? There's absolutely no negativity happening on Mars, and that's because right now, as of 2018, and that's because no sentient life ever came into existence on Mars, okay? So there's zero negativity, and what you can establish from that is the fact that there's no chance for any sort of pain whatsoever. There's no chance for any negativity. There's no chance for any holocausts or death or misery or anything like that, or being eaten alive like trillions of animals have been happening. That's been happening to trillions of animals every second of every day for the last 541 million years, okay? This wouldn't happen anymore if we eradicated it all right?
If you eradicated it all, yes. Can you eradicate it all right now?
And we can.
How?
Because nature did it and
nature did not do it. Nature eradicated 70% of a million animals, and land animals, and nature eradicated 90 to 96% of marine animals. Nature has never eradicated all of life. Not that we know of. So can you do it? Give me the evidence. Give me the numbers. Can you provide me evidence that you can get 100% of neuron-based life?
We can.
How? Give me the numbers.
I said already.
How much carbon dioxide? How many kilograms?
Your initial argument.
Give me how many kilograms of carbon dioxide would be released by nuking a fault line, given that in the bottom of the ocean, or even in deep enough in the ocean, nukes only expand to about 1 kilometer, even in their blast radius.
Listen, all right. A nuke can
because of the pressure that's there. Can you give me the numbers?
Fault lines are above the ocean as well, and they would acidify the oceans.
How many kilograms of carbon dioxide?
A large amount.
A large is not a number value for a kilogram of carbon dioxide.
Yeah, all right. Well, if you're an autist, it's not good enough for you.
No, because it's important. The reason it's important is because there's also a lot of ocean too. And the fact that there's a lot of carbon dioxide.
I don't really think you're sorting this stuff out completely.
The larger the ocean is, the less the pH of the ocean would decrease for the same amount of carbon dioxide. So we need to use the numbers and plug them into what's called the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, which is an equation for weak acids and how they dissociate and the resultant pH of the solution. So we need the numbers.
No reason to start to attack the conclusion when it can happen.
Well, there is a reason, because if you can't do it, then even our going out of existence would just result in other species taking over and suffering. It would just result in more suffering. The maximal state of suffering, maybe.
It would result in the reduction. We would definitely reduce it.
No, it would. No, it may very well not. It could result in more suffering.
Okay, so but ultimately,
how do you know it won't result in more suffering? Wait a minute. How do you know it won't result in more suffering?
Listen, all right, so you're making the conclusion. I was going to say this before, but
how do you know it won't result in more suffering?
Okay, because you'd be absolutely sure you'd watch from space or something. You'd
watch from space. Okay, so your goal is to make a Protoss armada, basically, to have a spaceship and to make sure the entire Earth is completely evaporated and exploded, and then to explode your spaceship itself. Basically, that's the end goal here.
Well, maybe not explode the spaceship yourself. No, the end goal is to let antinatalism take its toll, which is to make sure that people don't reproduce for absolutely no reason.
And animals don't count? Wait, animals are going to be there. Animals are going to be there.
Reproduce in the first place, okay? So,
but what's the point of that if animals would just take over the niche and just suffer themselves?
Well, I just said we could get rid of it with the
Protoss cannon.
No. The nukes that already exist, not
the nukes that already exist. I haven't seen any convincing evidence that nukes that already exist will eliminate 100% of life, and I've run the numbers. I have not seen it. If you can change my mind, I'm open to persuasion, but I would like to see your numbers.
You ran the numbers initially, and you didn't even factor in that they would have to do with a fault line, and I corrected you on that.
No. So you did not, because you did not. Nope. The reason I saw. Nope. So fault line is fault line. Nope. You completely
never mentioned any sort of fault line in that debate. Anyone that wants to watch the full dismantling of his initial argument can go watch positive versus my response to positive versus negative rights.
The reason you made such a fool of yourself.
Type in positive versus negative rights.
The reason you made such a fool of yourself when you talked about nuking the fault line.
So he didn't even talk about.
The reason you made such a fool of yourself when you talked about nuking the fault lines was because you did not even realize that the ocean would be so vast that you need an enormous amount of carbon dioxide to actually even decrease the ocean by 0.1 pH.
Fault lines in that initial video.
Well, you're making the claim, so I'm asking for the evidence. How many kilograms?
Well, no, that's not answering the question.
No, you claim that you can do it.
Did you articulate what you knew about
there are acidophiles.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
You make a claim. No, you made a claim that you would be able.
Anyone who wants to know this for a fact.
You made a claim by claiming you are able to.
Go check out positive versus negative.
You made a claim that you are.
Go check out positive versus negative.
You made a claim that you are able to do it.
Go check out positive versus negative rights.
And because you made that claim, I'm asking you to provide evidence for the amount of carbon dioxide that would acidify the ocean. Can you give me the number? Can you give me the number?
Okay, good.
Can you give me the number? What's the number?
Numbers are irrelevant right now.
Numbers are wait. Numbers are irrelevant. Numbers are irrelevant
right now. Yeah, especially when
how are numbers irrelevant?
Listen,
the number results in the pH.
I said numbers are irrelevant.
Dioxide results in the pH. How is it irrelevant?
Oh, jeez, man. So
can you give me the number?
Let's think about this for a second, all right?
Can you give? I want to know if you can give me the number.
People don't have.
How many kilograms of carbon dioxide will be released in the ocean? Give me that number.
If people were trying to just make the conclusion of veganism, protein though.
Dodging the question. Dodging the question. Can you give me the number of?
Dodging the question.
Can you give me the amount of kilograms resulting from the nuke of a fault line?
I'm not a sophist prick like you.
Sophist? No, that's important.
About
you
how
need
much
to actually calculate.
You think that you can fucking what? Just figure out all the uranium that's in the Earth's crust and make a fucking
conclusion you're talking about
when that's not even
making a claim that you're
they put on.
If you are making a claim. If you are making a claim that you can extinct all deep sea life by nuking a fault line, what you need to do is you need to tell me how many kilograms of carbon dioxide would result from nuking the fault line. You need to provide the evidence for that, and then you need to calculate that. You need to put that into the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, considering how vast the ocean is. You need to put in the mass of the ocean itself. You need to put in how much volume the ocean has of the solution, and you would need to do the disassociation, and you would need to calculate the resultant pH. If you can't do that, you don't have evidence that nuking the fault lines would result in.
You sounded smart. Good job, pretentious prick. Okay, you sounded.
Okay, can you provide the evidence or not?
Good job, pretentious.
Can you provide evidence or not?
Good job. You sounded smart. Good job. Is that what you wanted to do?
Can you provide the evidence or not?
Is that how you get your dick hard or something?
Can you provide the evidence or not? SHD, can you provide me with the evidence?
Shit out spawn.
Can you provide evidence to substantiate your claim or not?
Is that how you do it?
Can you provide evidence to substantiate your claim or not?
Yeah, that's how you do it, isn't it? That's how you shit out spawn. It's with your potential.
Can you provide the evidence to substantiate your claim or not?
Yeah, it's plenty.
Okay, so give me the number of kilograms. So how many kilograms of carbon dioxide will be released from a fault line when it is nuked? And give me the data showing how many kilograms is actually there.
Plenty. It's already happened.
Plenty is not a number. Plenty is not a number. So give me a number. How many kilograms of carbon dioxide would be released from the fault line?
A lot.
A lot is not a number. So, because also there's also a lot, because the reason. Okay, I'm gonna
pain unnecessarily is still.
I'm going to explain to you why it matters. I will explain to you why it matters.
You are a useless.
I will explain to you why it matters. The reason it matters is because just like there could be a lot of carbon dioxide, there's also an enormous amount of ocean. So enormous that the amount of carbon dioxide used for a solution that's very large, the same amount of carbon.
Watch from space.
You know what I mean by solution? Solution being a solvent, like water. Water is a solvent.
Get rid of this shit. Yeah, we get rid of it.
the larger the amount of water there is, the same amount of carbon dioxide will result in a lower pH decrease. So you actually need to look at the numbers if you want to say that this can actually work. So, and what also needs to work is the pH needs to decrease below the acidophiles. So even there are acidophilic creatures that can survive well in acidic environments. So you need to make it so acidic. What you need to do is you need to make it so acidic.
Here just to talk more than me or something? Is that what your goal is, to talk more?
You need to make it so acidic that even
do you think that somebody's conclusion of something should establish the entire argument, or do you think that the argument should establish the conclusion?
You should evidence. Do you think you should bring evidence for your claims?
Yes. And
okay, so tell me how many kilograms of carbon dioxide would be released from the fault lines? Where's the evidence for how the number?
I don't have to tell you exactly how much.
Well, then how can you make the claim?
It would have to be a lot, and we would watch from space.
A lot is not a
make sure
number.
that it happened.
A lot is not a number. So again, so how
a huge amount?
How can you make the claim?
What do you want?
That the
billions, trillions and trillions of
carbon. You understand like acid base is not like an on and off switch. Do you understand like there's a pH scale, and that different amounts of carbon dioxide will result in a different amount of pH decrease? In fact, all of the carbon dioxide that we've released for hundreds of years have only acidified the ocean to a pH degree of 0.1 or 0.2 maybe. So what is your evidence that fault lines have enough?
He's discussing the conclusion of antinatalism, which is ultimately the fact that I should have done that a long time ago. Why didn't you recommend to do that? I should have done that a long time ago. Now he's gone though, so that's good. So if you were trying to defend veganism against somebody else, would you just make the arguments that you thought, would you let them just continue to recite the how much protein would you actually need in order to do this protein, you know, like over and over and over again? I mean, would you just recite that over and over again? If I've already said how much, like, you'd need the sufficient amount, you know, and he kept saying you need the exact amount. I mean, you'd seriously be like, yeah, I mean, come on, you'd need a sufficient amount to get rid of it. It's logical, it's reasonable, okay? And it's already happened in evolution has already made it happen, okay? I'm sorry, existence here on planet Earth has already been almost completely extinguished by a natural event called the Permian extinction. All right, it was there was the largest by far extinction event that has ever taken place, and it happened just because of stupid nature emitting a huge amount of carbon dioxide from volcanic events that happened. You know, I think it was 250 million years ago, I believe. So yeah, so there you go. That's the conclusion, which that comes down to, but it comes to that conclusion from the fact that pain is bad, and pain is bad. Ultimately, this word that he didn't want to define at all, and he kept wanting to talk over me. Well-being, you look at this, you know, there's no pure state of healthy. You're expiring. From the time that you come into existence, you're expiring, okay? So you are experiencing the maximal amount of pain that you could ever experience when compared to the fact that you. So there's no cancer, there's no non-vegans, there's no negativity in a preposterous amount, which is ultimately what existence entails. And megalomaniac, sadistic, vicarious fucking morons like Dr. Avi will tell you otherwise, but the fact is they're not going to back it up with any evidence. They're not going to tell you how they can be purely healthy or purely comfortable or purely happy. You can only be less unhappy, less uncomfortable, less unhealthy. This is negative utilitarianism. These are the facts behind that. And he wouldn't let me establish that. He kept talking over me. Sorry, guys, if I could have muted him, I would be able to establish my arguments and then discuss it with him. But he just refuses to do that because he has to defend his natal biases, you know. He has to defend his megalomania. And he has to defend his megalomania and vicariousness and, you know, other types of stupid fucking shit. And ultimately, I debunked him completely and utterly. He had no fucking clue about the fault lines thing in the positive versus negative rights video that I made. That was responding to their positive versus negative rights shit. Okay? So the truth of the matter is that need doesn't need to exist when you factor in the fact that coming into existence is always a serious harm, and not coming into existence is simply not a serious harm, okay? And you can understand that by looking at a place like Mars and understanding that there's no negativity happening there, and that's because there's no sentient beings that ever came into existence on Mars, okay? So there's no negativity that's happening on Mars right now. And that means you can understand that negativity is brought into existence when sentient life, so humans and animals that are sentient, feel pain, are brought into existence, right? So there you go. I mean, it's just that simple. There doesn't need to exist in the first place. If you make children, you make chances for people to be non-vegans, okay? And if I convince people of antinatalism, which is true and correct and good, that makes infinity vegans. So if I create one antinatalist from this discussion, okay, that means that I create infinity vegans from that point on. And if he creates spawn, there's no telling what his future progeny will do, okay? They could be non-vegans, they could be purely vegans to the end of time, and they still wouldn't be accomplishing the same amount of harm reduction as simply not bringing a person into existence in the first place. Even if one of his future progeny cured cancer, that still wouldn't be as much of a net harm reduction as simply not bringing a person into existence. Because not bringing that person into existence entails no future progeny that will die, that will ever have cancer in the first place, have to get cured, that will ever have any sort of other types of pain that they'll feel whatsoever, okay? Which is ultimately just serves the megalomania and vicariousness and stupidity of somebody like Dr. Avi, okay? Or dupe yourself, okay? So, yeah, that's good enough. What do you think? Wrap it up? All right, so have as least bad of a day as you can. And until next time, it's good enough.
There'll be a next time.
There will be a next time. Good dog. Mark it up. All right. Hey, thanks.